Chapter 1187. Love to Read divided by 5200 will provide you with wonderful novels to read. Update the latest chapter of the Crown Princess's medical skills as soon as possible. You have to be on good terms with Princess Yuyen. Tell her that you didn't hurt her and that you don't hate her. You are on the same side. If you two fight each other, Zhang Qilan and Xiao Wanru will benefit from it. This is a great harm to both of you. I'm sure that this matter has something to do with Xiao Wanru and Zhang Qilan. They must have noticed something. Ruaping Great Elder Princess said with a gloomy face. She had thought about it carefully and found it suspicious no matter how she looked at it. The one who should have been in trouble didn't have an accident, but the two who shouldn't have had an accident had an accident. There was something wrong with it. Grandmother, what should I say? This dog belongs to our mansion. Now, the dog is dead, and the dog owner is dead. Whoever grandmother investigates will be in trouble. It seems that we have a guilty conscience, said Qin Wanru. Infanta Yuan, and was not stupid. On the contrary, she was very smart. She had just been angry for a while. Now, after being reminded by Ruaping Great Elder Princess, she gradually became sober. You just need to say that someone did it. You need to say that someone deliberately set the two of you against each other to take revenge for the two of you who schemed against Zhang Qilan and Xiao Wanru. Ruaping Great Elder Princess took a breath and said, even if I say so, she won't believe it. Yuyen, that bitch, is not a good person. She thinks about what is in the pot while eating from the bowl. She doesn't know who she is. She even wants to enter Prince Yu's mansion and compare herself with Zhang Qilan. Infanta Yuan then said disdainfully. She really looked down on Princess Yuyen's love-struck look. It seemed that anyone who saw her would be attracted to her and would do this and that for her. This reminded her of Xiao Yenru in the past. Compared with Xiao Yenru, Princess Yuyen was a little worse. At least, she really made Prince Yu and Prince Zhou fall in love with her at that time. Ruaping Great Elder Princess frowned. She had previously asked about the course of events. Back then, Princess Yuan and had also briefly mentioned this matter, but she did not take it to heart. Now, however, her heart was moved. Princess Yu Yen wants the position of Princess Yu? She didn't say that she must be the princess consort. She can only be the consort, but I think she will definitely go against Zhang Qilan. This time, she also wants to destroy Zhang Qilan. Since Princess Chen was harmed, Prince Chen will definitely not let it go. He will definitely investigate Zhang Qilan. With Prince Chen's temper, if it was really Zhang Qilan who did it, so what if it was Prime Minister Zhang? Princess Yuan and could not help but feel a chill run down her spine when she recalled what had happened to her second brother. Prince Chen, Chu Luchen was not a reasonable person. With Prince Chen's heart, if something happens to Princess Chen, he may bring this matter to the Empress Dowager and the Emperor. These two have always protected him. Zhang Qilan may not be able to keep her position as princess consort. Even if she can keep it, she will definitely have problems. Ruaping Great Elder Princess had watched Chu Luchen grow up. She still knew a little about this cold-blooded and overbearing person. This person only looked kind on the surface, but he could not be taken seriously. Yuan, do you think it was Prime Minister Zhang's idea? Ruaping Great Elder Princess suddenly asked. Grandmother, are you saying that Zhang Qilan deliberately beat her at her own game? Princess Yuan and reached out to touch her head and asked with a pale face. Don't you think that someone is playing tricks in this matter? Ruaping Great Elder Princess looked at the injury on her granddaughter's head and frowned fiercely. Someone must be playing tricks in the dark. Princess Yuan nodded. Whoever benefits the most from this matter will be the one. Ruaping Great Elder Princess said in a deep voice. But we also have to consider other possible factors. Whether we have the ability to help or not is also a very important thing. Do you think that Prince Yu has been bewitched by Princess Yuyen and wants Princess Yuyen to marry into his Prince Yu's mansion as his concubine? She still had to ask Chu Luiwei about his attitude. Ruaping Great Elder Princess's mansion inexplicably became the center of the matter. In the past 2 days, Ruaping Great Elder Princess had been in a mess, and Chu Liuzhou, who was supposed to visit her, had also disappeared. Ruaping Great Elder Princess seemed to be out of favor before she married him. Just for this point, Ruaping Great Elder Princess was a little flustered. It is said that Prince Yu's attitude is very good. Princess Yu Yan said that when she went there, she and Prince Yu had a tacit understanding. As long as Prime Minister Zhang's mansion did not say anything, Prince Yu would be fine. Infanta Yuan thought for a moment and said, that day, Princess Yu Yan looked very happy, and she should have a tacit understanding with Chu Luiyue. Prince Yu is willing, but Prime Minister Zhang's mansion is certainly not. In the end, Zhang Qilan is fine, and Princess Yu Yan can only marry into Commandery Prince Qing's mansion. It is impossible for her to have anything to do with Prince Yu anymore. Prime Minister Zhang's mansion can sit back and relax, and Prince Yu's mansion is also peaceful. It is Prince Zhou's mansion and Yu who are in trouble. In this matter, Prince Yu also benefits. I heard that in the past 2 days, Prince Yu went to Prime Minister Zhang's mansion from time to time. Ru Ping, Great Elder Princess, slowly analyzed. Grandma, in this case, Zhang Qilan benefits the most. If she is the one behind the scenes? Infanta Yuan was full of hatred. She gritted her teeth and said with hatred, this matter must have something to do with her. Prime Minister Zhang is behind her. Before the 2 princesses of the Su Kingdom came to the capital, this mansion was arranged by Prime Minister Zhang's people. It is very likely that some people have been arranged in it. Ru Ping, Great Elder Princess, said slowly, but it can't be said that Xiao Wanru is completely innocent. What's wrong with her? She just married a good husband. Without Prince Chen, Xiao Wanru is nothing. You are also a Great Elder Princess. Grandma, you are much better than Ru and Great Elder Princess. Infanta Yuan said indifferently. She looked down on Xiao Wanru and felt that Xiao Wanru's current status was given by Chu Luqian. Because she did not dare to offend Chu Luqian, she did not dare to offend Xiao Wanru. Infanta Yuan really looked down on a woman who was completely dependent on a man. Don't underestimate her. She is very powerful. She can compare with her big sister, who is famous in the capital city. She even suppressed the second branch of Marquis Xing and pushed her brother to the position of heir of duke. This Princess Qin is not simple. Compared with Infanta Yuan's disapproval, Ru, Great Elder Princess, looked much more serious. She shook her head and denied Infanta Yuan's statement. That's also because she married Prince Qin. Before she married Prince Qin, she was forced to go to the Yuhui nunnery. Everyone in Marquis Xing's mansion didn't take her seriously. Infanta Yuan didn't like Ru, Great Elder Princess's praise of Xiao Wanru. Thinking of what had happened between her and Xiao Wanru, she felt aggrieved. She didn't like Xiao Wanru very much. Grandma, who do you think is the one who backstabbed me? Her mind was in a mess, and her forehead hurt faintly. Although she had taken Dr. Chio's medicine, it still hurt a lot. She was also inexplicably upset. There were so many cheap women in Prince Zhou's mansion. How could she, the future Princess Zhou, bear it? In the future, she would be too ashamed to go out. She wanted to kill them one by one, but she had a noble status. It was not convenient for all of them to get into trouble at once. After finding out who it was, she would not let that person go. There are 2 possibilities. At present, it seems that Zhang Qilan is more likely. Let's take a closer look. In a while, go and see Princess Yu Yan and explain this matter. With the 2 of you working together, it will be much more convenient. Don't worry, Princess Yuan won't really do anything to you. She is also a street rat now. Without help, she can't gain a foothold in the capital city. Ru Ping, Great Elder Princess, sneered. In her eyes, the princess of a small barbaric country couldn't compare with her granddaughter. She despised the princess of a small country the most. She thought that she was so great and wanted to plot against the princesses of several princes. She didn't know whether she had this identity or not. Now she had become the princess of Commandery Prince Qing with an unknown identity. She didn't know whether she would be the princess, co-wife, concubine, or something else. Ru Ping, Great Elder Princess, actually wanted to please the most despised Commandery Prince Qing. For this reason, Ru Ping, Great Elder Princess, felt very relieved. Compared with her granddaughter, Princess Yu Yan's fate was even more miserable. In this case, what right did Princess Yu Yan have to despise her granddaughter? Even if she didn't believe it, so what? Grandma, I understand. Don't worry. I will go to the princess's mansion to apologize to Princess Yuyen later and tell her about it by the way. We can't be schemed against in vain. We have to get our face back. Infanta Yuan then gritted her teeth and said. The more she thought about it, the more hatred she felt. How did she get involved in this matter and even caused her to become like this? After her grandmother's analysis, she also felt that Zhang Qilan was most likely to be the culprit. Compared with Zhang Qilan, Xiao Wenru was a little worse. On the one hand, it was because she felt that she relied on men. At that time, Prince Chen hadn't come yet, so Xiao Wenru couldn't rely on her even if she wanted to. On the other hand, she felt that only Zhang Xiang could completely turn the situation around. In this situation, Zhang Qilan was fine and was the biggest winner. If Xiao Wenru had taken action, Zhang Qilan wouldn't have won so much. At that time, Infanta Yuan and would not have been rash. Her grandmother was right. She should first check carefully and then deal with the person who wanted to harm them. In fact, Infanta Yuan Anne's injury was not as serious as it seemed. She just deliberately said that it was serious at that time in order to avoid punishment. After Ruiping Great Elder Princess asked someone to help her clean up, she asked a few servant girls and old maids to escort her to the princess's mansion. The carriage of Ruiping Great Elder Princess's mansion slowly left the mansion without disturbing anyone. In the past few days, Ruiping Great Elder Princess had been in and out of the palace from time to time. Other relatives were not surprised. The carriage moved forward in a low-key manner and happened to pass by a tea house. Xiao Wenru was sitting in the tea house drinking tea. Looking at the carriage passing by below, she rolled her eyes and showed a smile on her cherry lips. This was a key intersection between Ruiping Great Elder Princess's mansion and the princess's mansion. If they were going to the Imperial Palace, they would not come here. Chu Luchen said that Ruiping Great Elder Princess couldn't sit still anymore. It seemed that it was true. Needless to say, it must be Infanta Yuan who was going to the princess's mansion. Of course, it didn't matter if it was not Infanta Yuan. She just needed to sit and watch them do what they wanted. She waved her hand gently and Yu Jie, who was at the intersection of the street below, understood. At this time, she also saw the carriage. As she had prepared in advance, she forcefully pulled down the lantern hanging at the door of the shop and said angrily, "You are bullying the owner. It is obvious that my master took a fancy to the lantern first. Why do you want to give it to this miss?" It was easy to meet self-righteous and unruly misses from aristocratic families on this street. There was no need to look for them deliberately. There was such a miss in front of them. Just now, she really wanted to grab the lantern that Yu Jie took a fancy to. End of this chapter. Chapter 1188. Love to read? 5200 will provide you with wonderful novels to read. Update the latest chapter of The Crown Princess as soon as possible. Catch her. A young lady at the door of the shop glared at Yu Jie and said angrily. The two old maids beside her took 2 steps forward and held her hands, trying to hold her down. Yu Jie struggled desperately. "I like this lantern first. Not only did you meddle in it, but you also want to rob it. This lantern belongs to our master. How dare you rob it?" Yu Jie was so strong that she dragged the 2 old maids to take a step forward. One of them was still unsteady, so she took a few more steps forward and bumped into the young lady of her family. The young lady was almost hit and fell down. She was so angry that her face turned blue. Beat her. Beat her hard. She had never been so aggrieved. She was so embarrassed by a servant girl. "This is the capital." The wet nurse who followed her saw that the situation was not good and hurried to persuade her. This was the capital, where all the people living were high-ranking officials and dignitaries. No one knew who the master behind this humble servant girl was. It was better not to offend her since she had just come to the capital. "What are you afraid of? My cousin will help me. I really don't believe that anyone can go against my will," the young lady said loudly. She had someone to back her up, and it was a powerful one. Even if she had just come to the capital, so what? She couldn't be afraid of others. The passers-by saw this and secretly shook their heads. This young lady was raised to be a little too arrogant. "Our master is beside us. How dare you?" Yu Jie said loudly while pulling another old maid forward. She had always been strong. 2 old maids couldn't hold her back, let alone 1 old maid. The young lady was so angry that her finger pointing at Yujie trembled with anger. Beat her. Beat her hard for me. If she dies, I will bear the responsibility. She had just come to the capital and encountered such a thing. She couldn't bear it anymore. She had listened to the wet nurse's words before, but now she couldn't bear it anymore. She had always been spoiled and had never suffered such anger. Hearing her words, 4 more servant girls came forward and held Yujie's hands and arms. They restrained Yujie tightly. When the people around saw that there was a commotion here, and it was such a situation, many people stopped to watch the show. For a time, even the road was blocked. Princess Yuan-An's carriage was stuck there, unable to move forward or retreat. Princess Yuan-An, who was in the carriage, couldn't see what was going on outside, so she sent a maid to check on the situation. If it was in the past, Princess Yuan-An would have already sent someone to drive away the passers-by. But now, she knew that she had to keep a low profile. At this time, Ruaping Great Elder Duke's mansion was in the eye of the storm, so she had to be more careful. The maid got off the carriage, squeezed into the crowd, and saw the scene in front of her. She knew the personal principal maid of Princess Qin. It turned out to be the maid named Yujie of Princess Qin. She simply stopped and deliberately asked the person next to her politely, "What happened?" It seems that the maid's master took a fancy to the lantern. Later, the young lady also took a fancy to the lantern and wanted to snatch it. The maid tore the lantern down and broke it. That's why they quarreled. A middle-aged woman next to him pointed at the lantern that had fallen to the ground. During the pushing and shoving, the lantern had been stepped on a few times, and it had long been broken. The originally carefully picked eaves were also broken, and the exquisite embroidery was stepped on a few times. The whole shape was about to be flattened, and it looked like a piece of junk. Beside Princess Qin, Princess Yuan-An's maid actually quarreled with someone for a piece of junk, and it seemed that she was at a disadvantage. The maid next to Princess Yuan-An curled her lips disapprovingly. Princess Qin was really useless. Not only was she useless, but also the maid next to her was useless. Unexpectedly, the lantern was snatched, and the maid was in such a mess. If her princess liked the lantern, whoever dared to snatch it from her would be slapped in the face. Let's see who dared to fight with her. Among the womenfolk in the capital, there was no one who was more powerful than a princess. Yujie was still struggling desperately. Although there were many people holding her, no one could do anything to her. Instead, she was dragged here and there. "Miss, please stop." In the midst of the commotion, a servant girl squeezed through the crowd. It was Qing. She took a few steps forward and forcefully pushed away several servant girls who were holding Yujie. She pulled Yujie to the side and said to the arrogant lady in the middle, "This is the capital. Miss, please look after your servants." So many people around her went up, but even a maid could not do anything. The miss in the middle was very angry. When she went back, she would slap a few maids to death, as if they had not eaten. So what? Is there someone in the capital who becomes arrogant and dares to throw away the lantern that I like? The miss said angrily. She was really angry. It was really her first time in the capital. Hearing Qing'er's words and deeds seemed to look down on her. She was even more angry. The lantern was seen by our master, and it was also our master who asked Yujie to come to get it. "Miss, you took a fancy to this lantern and wanted to snatch it. What's the reason?" Qing'er explained in a methodical manner. She pointed to the shopkeeper who shrank aside and said, "Ask him to say that it's not like this." Since there was a fight here, the shopkeeper had already been scared to hide aside for fear of getting involved. At this time, when he was pointed out by Qing, he had to smile and bow to the miss in the middle. "Miss, I've just said that this lantern was taken by someone else. Miss, you came a little late. If you really like it, please allow us to make another pair and send it to your mansion as an apology." No matter how he looked at it, this miss was not someone he could offend, so the shopkeeper intended to make peace. Then he bowed to Yujie and Qing'er and said, "You too, also leave your address. When the time comes, we will send a pair of lanterns to your master as an apology." Although Yujie and Qing'er were maids, their clothes were more gorgeous than those of ordinary misses. At first glance, it was obvious that they were not from ordinary mansions. The shopkeeper had been in the capital for so many years, and he had a sharp eye. Naturally, he did not dare to offend the masters behind these two. Harmony brings wealth, harmony brings wealth. Miss, you've just arrived in the capital. If you make trouble, you will definitely make Madam angry. This time you came to the capital. The wet nurse whispered in her Miss's ear and reminded her. In the current situation, it seemed that her Miss was in the wrong. There was a lot of discussion in the crowd. They were all talking about this matter, and the wet nurse heard it clearly. Wet nurse, these two cheap girls dare to bully me like this. I can't bear it. I want to. Miss still did not dare to stop, gritting her teeth and saying. The wet nurse immediately interrupted her, pulled her sleeves, and whispered in her ear, Miss, if you really want to enter the prince's mansion, you can't make trouble anymore. This is the capital. Who knows who is behind them? If you offend someone, maybe Madam and your plan will be in vain. These words were very low, and only the Miss heard it clearly. She also knew that it was true. At this time, she could not make trouble. After everything was settled, there would be opportunities in the future. Ask someone to keep an eye on them and see which mansion they are from. In the future, I will definitely slap their master's face. The Miss said angrily. She could not bear it, but it was not a good time. After everything was settled in the future, she would definitely take revenge for what happened today. Bitch, I will be magnanimous today and let you live. Get out of here. The Miss said loudly. Yujia was extremely angry. It seemed that she wanted to go forward to argue, but she was stopped by Qin. They looked at the Miss angrily and turned to leave. Where did this Miss come from? She is too arrogant and rude. I don't believe that she really dares to do anything to us. Yujia said angrily as she walked. Master is in a bad mood. She has just been schemed against. How can she be in the mood to argue with such a person? We have to find out what happened before. This kind of thing is just a trifle. Qing lowered her voice and persuaded. Her words made Yujia calm down. She seemed to think of something. Although her face was still gloomy, she said calmly, I said that I would help you find out what happened and tell you not to be sad. I especially asked you to go out on the street to relax, but you caused such a thing again. Master will definitely be unhappy later. If you keep being sad, it will hurt your health. Let's coax Master. We can't make Master unhappy anymore. That thing has nothing to do with our Master. It can't be helped by those three. Just let me investigate them. The voices were getting farther and farther away. Infanta Yuan and servant girl looked at their backs with a complicated look and frowned. The Master should be Prince Qin, and the so-called Master was naturally Princess Qin. After watching the show, the onlookers left, and the servant girl also left with them. She climbed into Infanta Yuan's carriage and reported the cause and effect of the matter in detail. After hearing it, Infanta asked the servant girl to tell it again. After that, she said with a sneer, Xiao Wanru is really useless. She asks Prince Qin to investigate everything. Even if Prince Qin is in good health now, how many people can he use? Although the emperor said that Prince Qin could inherit the throne and become the crown prince of the Eastern Palace, how many people could he use when he had been ill for so many years? Why did he want to investigate her? Of course, Princess Qin can't be compared with you. She just relies on Prince Qin. She said that Prince Qin wanted to investigate you, Princess Yuyan, and Miss Zhang. Princess Qin was in a bad mood, so she found such a lantern to enjoy. If it were you, she wouldn't be so useless. The servant girl flattered. The servant girl flattered. Although she was flattering her, what she said was also true. Infanta Yuan wanted to take revenge as soon as she was bullied. Princess Qin was really too weak. Infanta Yuan did not answer. Suddenly, she felt a light bulb go off in her head. She immediately made up her mind. What happened in the princess mansion must have been done by Zhang Qilan or Xiang Zhang. Xiao Wanru didn't have enough manpower or ability. She looked powerful, but she was actually weak in reality. It was impossible for her to succeed. Xiao Wanru didn't have the right time, the right place, the right people, and the right temperament. Zhang Qilan, Infanta gnashed her teeth. Since she was sure that it was Zhang Qilan, She would not be polite. Prince Chen didn't find anything, but it didn't mean that she couldn't. She was hurt like this, but Zhang Qilan didn't do anything. How could she let Zhang Qilan get what she wanted? End of this chapter. Chapter 1189. Love to Read divided by 5200 will provide you with wonderful novels to read. Update the latest chapter on medical skills of the Crown Princess as soon as possible. Xiao Wanru sat upstairs, watched Infanta Yuan's maid climb into the carriage, and then watched the carriage leave. She picked up a cup of tea at hand, took a sip, and slightly raised the corners of her mouth. With the sound of footsteps, Yu Jie and Qing entered the door one after another. Seeing Yu Jie's messy hair, Xiao Wanru couldn't help laughing. She had prepared for this and asked Qing to comb Yu Jie's hair again. "Your Highness, that miss is really too much. She is very rude and ruthless. She doesn't look like someone from the capital city. I don't know where she came from. How could she be so rude?" After combing Yu Jie's hair, Yu Jie stepped forward and said aggrievedly, reaching out to pull her lapel. In just a short while, her lapel was torn. "Well, it's over," Xiao Wanru said indifferently. She had asked Yu Jie to find a person who looked rude and made some trouble. She had thought that it would not be easy to find her. Unexpectedly, when she went downstairs, she found one opposite her. Although Yu Jie intended to find a rude person, it was really an accident to meet this one. Yu Jie really thought that the pair of lanterns were good and wanted to buy them and send them here. Unexpectedly, when she was about to pay for them, she met such a person. Yu Jie simply quarreled with her first and waited until Infanta Yuan's carriage came before she made a move and made the matter worse. "Your Highness, I don't think that person is easy to compromise. She might do something bad to you," Yu Jie said. That miss was not a kind person and kept saying that she would kill anyone. It could be seen that she was not only capricious but also had a bad temperament. "It doesn't matter." Xiao Wanru shook her head carelessly. She really didn't take this matter seriously. The reversal of the princess's mansion would inevitably make many people suspicious. Of course, Zhang Lanqi and herself were the most suspicious ones. Infanta Yuan and Princess Yuan had suffered such a big loss, so how could they give up? It would make them feel that they were useless, strong in appearance, but weak in reality, and needed Chu Liuchen's support, which would make them clear of some suspicion. If they were in a bad mood, it would show that they also felt aggrieved, but they couldn't find the person who framed them. Although Princess Yuan and Princess Yu Yan were not good at accomplishing anything, they were more than capable of ruining things. "Is Princess Yuan in here?" Princess Yu Yan said through gritted teeth as she lay on the bed. "I won't see her." Her buttocks were bitten, and she was hurt from the fall. Her heart was burning with anger. "You don't want to see Princess Yuan?" Princess Yu Tao raised her eyebrows and asked calmly. "Since that's the case, I'll get someone to throw her out." As he said this, he waved his hand to summon a servant and was about to give the order. "Wait!" Princess Yu Yan suddenly stopped him. Princess Yu Tao turned around and waited for her explanation. Princess Yu Yan suppressed the anger in her heart and explained, "I don't think Princess Yuan is trying to harm me this time. It could be, I don't care. It's between you and Commandery Princess Yuan. Since you don't care, let her in." Princess Yu Tao stood up and said casually. She looked down at Princess Yu Yan and said, "You can't change the fact that you're going to marry into Commandery Prince Qing's mansion. You're the princess of our Su kingdom. No matter how bad you are, you can't just be a side concubine, right? If you can only be a side concubine, father will definitely give up on you." A princess of a kingdom, even if she was a princess of a small kingdom, was not to be trifled with. However, the Su kingdom couldn't say anything about this matter. Princess Yu Yan's actions were not clean. At this moment, the envoy of the Su kingdom and Princess Yu Tao couldn't say anything for her. They could only swallow their anger. Now, the key to becoming Commandery Prince Qing's concubine depended on Chu Qing. "Don't worry, big sister. I'll talk to Chu Qing about this and ask for the position of Commandery Prince Qing's concubine." Princess Yu Yan was both embarrassed and angry, as if her most unbearable side had been seen by Princess Yu Tao. In the past, she had always behaved in front of Princess Yu Tao, and from the bottom of her heart, She felt that Princess Yu Tao was beneath her. She did not expect that one day, Princess Yu Tao would see her in such a sorry state. That's for the best. As for Princess Yuan, you can do whatever you want. Princess Yu Tao was not willing to stay either. After saying this, she turned and left. The palace maids from the Su kingdom all knew that the two princesses did not have a good relationship. They all lowered their heads and did not dare to move. When Princess Yuan came in, she saw Princess Yu Yen lying awkwardly on the bed. She knew that it was very inconvenient for her. She took 2 steps forward and bowed deeply to Princess Yu Yen, who was lying on the bed with a dark face. Princess Yu Yen, what happened that day really has nothing to do with our manner. I can't really get a dog to bite you because I want to deal with you. This will not do me any good. She came straight to the point and showed her sincerity. Princess Yu Yen wanted to smash Princess Yuan's face with something and break that pretty little face. If she hit her head, she would bleed. Princess Yuan, you really didn't want to hurt me? Princess Yu Yen suppressed her anger and asked coldly. I have never wanted to hurt you. If you don't believe me, I can swear. Princess Yuan stretched out her hand. She pointed to the sky and directly swore. Seeing her swear without hesitation, Princess Yu Yan's expression softened, but she still sneered and asked, if it's not you, then please tell me, Princess Yuan, who else has the ability to send people to Ruaping Great Elder Princess's residence, and who has the ability to injure me like this in your residence? Our manor is indeed not a place that ordinary people can infiltrate. However, if it's the Prime Minister, then it's possible. Commandery Princess Yuan had thought a lot on her way here. She connected the little things that she didn't care about before. Grandmother said that this mansion was given to us by grandmother when she left the palace. At that time, Prime Minister Zhang was already in the Ministry of Works. If someone had done something to it at that time, it wouldn't be obvious now. Originally, it was just a guess. Now, she was 90% sure that it had something to do with Prime Minister Zhang's manor. You mean Prime Minister Zhang's manor? Princess Yu Yen frowned and asked. Yes, Prime Minister Zhang's manor. Princess Yuan nodded with certainty. Come on, give the princess a seat. Princess Yu Yen called. Immediately, a palace maid came over and put a chair in front of the bed. Princess Yuan thanked her with a smile and sat down. Princess, who do you think is the most important person in this matter and who will benefit in the end? Princess Yuan asked. Benefit? Princess Yu Yen frowned more and more. Is it Princess Qin or Miss Zhang of Prime Minister Zhang's manor? Princess Yu Yen thought about what happened that day for a long time, but she still had no clue. It should be impossible for her and Princess Yuan to be together. There were only Princess Qin and Miss Zhang. However, she couldn't figure out which part went wrong. She clearly saw Zhang Qilan's people bring her, but why was Xiao Wenru fine? Why did Zhang Qilan bring her to her room? Thinking of this, her eyes suddenly lit up. Nothing happened to Zhang Qilan, and she even gave people the impression that we wanted to frame her and Princess Qin. Should Princess Qin thank her? She has always had a good relationship with Princess Qin, or Princess Qin thinks that she has always had a good relationship with her. Xiao Wenru seems to be a smart person, but I didn't expect her to be so stupid. Zhang Qilan has been jealous of her for a long time, but she doesn't know it and treats Zhang Qilan as her sister. Princess Yuan then sneered. Zhang Qilan got all the benefits, but the two of us ended up like this. As for Princess Qin, she is neither good nor bad. In fact, Prime Minister Zhang's manor also knows that the princess came to my manor this time. Why? Princess Yu Yen looked at her with wide eyes. Why does Prime Minister Zhang's manor know so much about your manor? It was also an accident. One of my sisters accidentally revealed it. She was originally discussing marriage with the young master of Prime Minister Zhang's manor. If I hadn't asked, I wouldn't have known about it. That day, they talked about the princess coming to the manor, Princess Yuan then said. Thinking of this, it was true. Princess Yu Yen was no longer calm. She turned over and subconsciously wanted to sit up, but she didn't know where she hit. She immediately cried out in pain and her face twitched. Princess Yuan hurriedly stepped forward and supported her body. She asked in a low voice. How is the princess? You are seriously injured. I brought good medicine today. You will definitely get better soon after you use it. My grandmother asked me to come today to apologize to you. Since this happened in our manor, it's our own fault for not being strict enough and hurting the princess. Great Elder Princess had taken responsibility for what happened in raping Great Elder Princess's mansion. What about what happened in the princess's mansion? Thinking of this, Princess Yu Yan's anger towards Princess Yuan and was much calmer. Previously, she felt that Princess Yuan and was really hateful for hurting her that day. Now, she felt that at that time, she couldn't do anything. If she wanted to blame someone, she could only blame Zhang Qilan. It was Zhang Qilan who did something. Both she and Princess Yuan and were in trouble. Your Highness, Prince Zhou had already chosen one concubine, and I was the first one to choose a concubine. But now, he chose 3 more concubines. 5 concubines entered the mansion at the same time, and the concubines were all noble ladies. Even I might not be able to control them. Infanta Yuan An's eyes turned red. She really resented this matter. Although this was an act, it was also her real thoughts. She really resented Zhang Qilan. When she mentioned this matter, she gritted her teeth. She wished that Zhang Qilan could also receive the same treatment. Zhang Qilan had bad intentions. Why should she be treated well? Just because she was Prime Minister Zhang's daughter? Prince Yu had been visiting her, as if she was the one who was really wronged. What do you want? When Princess Yu Yan saw Princess Yuan An's expression, she knew that she wanted revenge. After thinking about it, she asked tentatively. Her heart was also burning and uncomfortable. She would feel uncomfortable if she didn't vent her anger. The 2 of them could be considered to have hit it off. It was like this at the beginning, and it was still like this now. Each had their own thoughts and ideas. Even if they joined hands, they also had their own plans. End of this chapter. Chapter 1190. Love to Read divided by 5200 will provide you with wonderful novels to read. Update the latest chapter of the Crown Princess's medical skills as soon as possible. Princess, are you still willing to see Prince Yu? Infanta Yuan thought for a moment and asked. So what if I see Prince Yu? He can't really marry me. I heard that he is deeply in love with the miss of the Zhang mansion. He goes to see her every day because he is worried about her. Princess Yu Yan said angrily. She felt sour and jealous. Chu Luiwei had expressed his love for her that day. Why hadn't he come to see her? She was still hoping that Chu Luiwei would come to her. Princess, Prince Yu can't marry you. Infanta Yuan sighed and reminded Princess Yu Yan. Princess Yu Yan's face was blue and cold. She said disdainfully, Prince Yu is nothing. It's not like there's no one else but him. Infanta Yuan An's heart suddenly jumped. Did this dissolute Princess Yu Yan fall in love with Prince Zhou again? Princess, although Prince Yu can't marry you, he has no malice towards you. If you ask him to come over and ask him something, he will definitely come. Infanta Yuan hinted. Why ask him to come? Since it's useless, why don't he come? He's really useless. He can't even decide who he wants to marry. Even if our Su kingdom wants to marry a crown princess, we have to be satisfied. Princess Yu Yan snorted coldly. Although it may not be useful, Zhang Qilan is going to marry Prince Yu. If Prince Yu treats you well, Zhang Qilan will definitely be unhappy. Infanta Yuan hinted. Princess Yu Yan thought for a moment and shook her head. It's not convenient for me to ask him to come over. Princess Yu Yan can't. You can ask Princess Yu Tao to invite him. Prince Yu welcomed you into the city. Now there are some things that I can trouble Prince Yu with. Infanta Yuan then said with a smile. Big sister is impatient with these trivial things. Princess Yu Yan still shook her head. Princess Yu Tao was not on good terms with her. How could Princess Yu Tao help her now? Princess Yu Yan is only in the name of the first princess, but in fact, she still wants to see you. You can start with Zhang Qilan. Prince Yu will be willing to see you. Infanta Yuan reminded her. Princess Yu Yan's eyes brightened. Zhang Qilan's matter was indeed the best starting point. She had to let Prince Yu see what kind of woman the woman he was going to marry was. Okay, I will invite Prince Yu to come over, but this is not enough. Zhang Qilan caused Prince Yu and I to be unable to be together. Princess Yu Yan, who had made up her mind, already had a plan in her heart. It was difficult for her to justify what had happened that day, and neither could Zhang Qilan. Let's discuss how to do it. It's best to investigate the matters in your house clearly. Is there really no loophole for Zhang Qilan to exploit? Princess Yu Yan was unwilling to give up. She waved to Princess Yuan and motioned for her to come closer. Both of them had suffered such a big loss this time. Neither of them was able to suffer a loss. If they hadn't been caught off guard at that time, how could things have come to this point? They would not let go of Zhang Qilan and Prince Yu. Princess Yuan and did not stay at Princess Yu Yan's place for a long time. She returned to the mansion not long after. Her wounds had not healed, and after walking one round, she did not have any strength left. Originally, she was going to rest when she heard that Prince Zhou had come to the mansion. Her heart was filled with joy, and she raised her spirits to see her grandmother. Chu Liuzhou was talking with Ruiping Great Elder Princess. When he saw Infanta Yuan come in, he narrowed his eyes slightly to hide the displeasure in his eyes. The smile on his face became much gentler. His mother sent a letter asking him to win over Ruiping Great Elder Princess's mansion. After such a trip, after Infanta Yuan and met Ruiping Great Elder Princess, she also sat down. Ruiping Great Elder Princess gave an excuse to leave so that they could talk in private. Your Highness, why do you have time to come here today? Eveni pulled the handkerchief in her hand, lowered her head, and said reproachfully. She was indeed wronged. She had hoped to see Prince Zhou by the bed when she woke up, but she didn't expect to see him until a few days after she woke up. You're hurt. I should have come here early, but my father is very angry these days. He gets very angry when he mentions you. I'm afraid that I will make trouble for you, so I deliberately come here a few days later. Chu Liuzhou said with a smile. His words made Infanta Yuan feel a little better. But when she thought that she would soon have several concubines, she was very jealous. I thought you were too busy to come here because you were going to marry more concubines. Infanta Yuan continued to pull the handkerchief in her hand hard. How could it be? No matter how many women there are, only you are my wife. Only your children are my descendants and will inherit everything of mine in the future. Chu Liuzhou was very easy to talk to today, and he was not as reckless as he used to be. He looked at Infanta Yuan with a very gentle smile. Infanta Yuan's heart was well touched, and her grievances and annoyance in the past few days suddenly disappeared a lot. She and Chu Liuzhou were childhood sweethearts, and she knew that Chu Liuzhou was not a good person. Now that he comforted her gently, it could be seen that he really cared about her. Her eyes turned red, and she wiped the corners of her eyes with a handkerchief. Your Highness, do you know who spoiled things that day? Chu Liuzhou frowned. He hadn't found any clues up to now. Infanta Yuan was the one who should know the most. Prime Minister Zhang and Zhang Qilan, or even Prince Yu. Infanta Yuan then gritted her teeth and spat on Chu Luiyue. In front of Princess Yu Yan, she didn't say anything about Chu Luiyue, so she naturally had no scruples at this time. What do you mean? Chu Liuzhou asked after thinking for a while. Your Highness, it is absolutely true that Princess Yu Yan likes Prince Yu, and Prince Yu has indeed responded. I'm afraid that Prime Minister Zhang knows something, so he and Zhang Qilan set up such a trap to trap Princess Yu Yan. Even I was not spared, causing your Highness to lose face. Commandery Princess Yuan said with hatred. When Zhang Qilan was in the mansion that day, she obviously wanted to hurt Xiao Wanru, but I don't know why she didn't send her into Xiao Wanru's room. Instead, it seemed that she was hurt. She benefited the most from this, and Xiao Wanru may not know it. Infanta Yuan now believed in Zhang Qilan. It had something to do with Chu Luiyue? Chu Liuzhou was concerned about this. Zhang Qilan was now Chu Liuyue's fiancée and Prime Minister Zhang's daughter. If Zhang Qilan was hurt, it might hurt Chu Luiyue, and even make Prime Minister Zhang and Chu Luiyue fall out. This was what Chu Liuzhou was most concerned about. What should I do? Chu Liuzhou asked. Cause a fight between Prince Chen's mansion and Prince Yu's mansion, and let Xiao Wanru know about it. Prince Chen is protective of his shortcomings. So what if Prime Minister Zhang protects him? Infanta Yuan and said indignantly. As for Prince Yu, Princess Yuyen had already planned to send a few charming palace maids there. Although the foreign women were not the best looking, at least they had the charm of a foreign country, which could confuse Prince Yu. Okay. Chu Liuzhou thought for a while and agreed. He turned to look at Infanta Yuan's resentful face and narrowed his eyes slightly. His mother said that Yuan and could help him. Trust her again. There can be no more mistakes in this matter. Your Highness, don't worry. There won't be any mistakes this time. With Princess Yuan's help, she will only find out about Prince Yu. Infanta Yuan and sneered. She didn't like either Zhang Qilan or Princess Yuyen, and it happened to be a good opportunity for them to confront each other. As for Xiao Wanru, it was the best to get her involved. She told Chu Liuzhou everything she had discussed with Princess Yuyen just now. Chu Liuzhou nodded repeatedly and finally looked at Infanta Yuan, and with a very kind expression. You haven't fully recovered yet. Be careful. Don't hurt yourself because of this. If you have married me now, I can protect you a little bit. Now you can only rely on yourself. I will definitely make it up to you in the future. Hearing this and seeing Chu Liuzhou's concerned eyes, Infanta Yuan was filled with tenderness. She unconsciously showed a smile on her face and became gentle. Although those women had extraordinary backgrounds, it didn't matter if they married her. Her relationship with Prince Zhou was incomparable to theirs. What was more, compared with those women, she was the most useful one. Her grandma said that people like Prince Zhou valued strength more. As the legal princess and the future empress, she should be magnanimous. Prince Zhou couldn't only have one woman. Of course, as the legal princess, she had the final say on how many children he would have in the future. Infanta Yuan was full of joy and was already thinking about whether Chu Liuzhou's women could have children in the future. Xiao Wanru went to Ru and Great Elder Princess's mansion. She heard that Ru and Great Elder Princess was not feeling well, so she specially came to have a look. After chatting with Ru and Great Elder Princess for a while, she heard someone outside reporting that her mother had come to see her. Grandma, why is she here again? Xiao Wanru asked with a faint look in her eyes. She said that it's about your brother Hao, and Great Elder Princess said unhappily. She really didn't give up and went to see Hao, Xiao Wanru said with a sneer. She gave her mother a chance that day because she wanted to see how far this woman could go. It didn't take long for her to find Hao. She gave Hao a bracelet used by your mother and said that it was left by your mother at that time, Vu and Great Elder Princess said. Then why is she here now? She gave your brother a bracelet used by your mother and said that she found some old things of your mother and would send them here. Hao came back and told me about it, so I asked her to send them directly to the mansion next time. Now there should be some more sent here. I don't know why she, as a maid, left so many things of your mother. When Great Elder Princess explained. Xiao Wanru's heart skipped a beat. She clenched the handkerchief in her hand tightly and then let it go little by little. Such a thought made her palms wet with sweat and her face change dramatically. Zhuozhua, what's wrong with you? And Great Elder Princess noticed her reaction immediately. She reached out to hold her hand and felt a trace of dampness in the handkerchief in her hand. She hurriedly asked, Do you feel uncomfortable? Do you want Dr. Xian to come and have a look? And Great Elder Princess had a lingering fear that Xiao Wanru vomited like that for no reason when she went to Marquis Xing's mansion. Grandma, I'm fine. I want to see my mother. Can I? Xiao Wanru restrained the horror in her eyes, raised her pale face, and asked softly. No one knew the shock in her heart. End of this chapter. Chapter 1191. Love to read? 5200 will provide you with wonderful novels to read. Update the latest chapter on medical skills of the Crown Princess as soon as possible. Nyang had been waiting in the living room for a while. It had been almost 2 hours, but Great Elder Princess didn't send anyone to tell her anything. She couldn't help feeling confused and even hesitant. The room was very quiet, and she was alone. She couldn't see anyone outside the window, but she knew that there were 2 maids standing at the door. If she left now, she might not be able to. In fact, she really didn't think about it today. At this time, Great Elder Princess didn't want to see her, which made her breathe a sigh of relief. The door was suddenly pushed open. Seeing Xiao Wanru's delicate little face behind the door, Yang was inexplicably flustered. She had an indescribable feeling and subconsciously took 2 steps back. She would rather see Ru and Great Elder Princess than Princess Chen. Compared with Ru and Great Elder Princess, Princess Chen was more difficult to deal with. At such a young age, she couldn't tell what she was thinking. Her beautiful eyes seemed to be very clear, but they always made people unable to see through them. Seeing Xiao Wanru coming over, Yang hurriedly put away her thoughts and stepped forward to say respectfully, "Greetings, Princess Chen." Xiao Wanru said lightly and sat down in the upper position. Her watery eyes fell on Yang and she frowned slightly. The faint scrutiny made Yang more and more uncomfortable. "Do you know Miss Gu?" After a long while, she heard Xiao Wanru's question. Only then did Yang feel relaxed, and the feeling of being scrutinized immediately reduced a little. "My carriage collided with Miss Gu's carriage. Miss Gu didn't blame me. She is a kind-hearted person, so she asked me to talk with her for a while and talked about some past events," Yang said. She remembered it very well. No matter who asked her in the future, she would say the same. "Past events?" Xiao Wanru raised her eyebrows. Yang lowered her head and didn't dare to look at her clear and beautiful eyes. Miss Gu said that her family had contacts with the Imperial censor's family. Because of their contacts, they had a common topic, which could more confirm her identity. Of course, this fake identity was found by Ru and Great Elder Princess. In order to confirm this identity, Yang increasingly put on airs of an old Imperial censor's daughter in front of others. But this didn't work in front of Xiao Wanru. This person knew the inside story from the start. The more he thought about it, the more uncomfortable he felt. "I heard that you gave Hao a bracelet that his mother once wore? Where did you get it?" Xiao Wanru didn't ask any more and changed the topic. Yang breathed a sigh of relief and hurriedly said with a smile, "This was bestowed by the Commandery Princess. I have been keeping it." That day, I remembered that I originally wanted to send it to the Great Elder Princess's residence. However, I was afraid that it would disturb the Great Elder Princess, so I specially went to find the little heir and asked him to help me send it in. It was a legitimate reason, a legitimate action, and everything was legitimate. The whole purpose was to get familiar with Xiao Yuanhao and his surroundings. This was the purpose that the Marquis had given her. She also had her own selfish motives. That was why she sent some of the Commandery Princess's old clothes over. It was not Master Ho's idea to send the old clothes. She was even afraid that Master Ho would find out, so she secretly came over. Xiao Wanru's eyes fell on a blue package placed aside by her, and she looked a little strange. "Are these my mother's old things you brought?" "They are some of the old things that the Commandery Princess used to wear. I keep them as a souvenir." That day, I saw that the little heir missed the Commandery Princess so much, so I specially packed some of them and brought them over. Nyang said with a hollow smile. Xiao Wanru reached out her hand. Yu Jia stepped forward, put the package on the table in front of her, and untied the strong knots on it. There weren't many things inside. There were 2 sets of old clothes that looked a little old, but the material was still good. It was obvious that they weren't something an ordinary person could afford to wear. Along with the clothes, there was a pair of small earrings. The earrings weren't very big, and there were 3 round pearls hanging from the earrings. This was her mother's relic. She had seen it on the map. It was one of the lost objects of Marquis Xing's mansion. At that time, old Madame repeatedly said that this object was lost. Like the previous bracelets, these are all given to me by the Commandery Princess. I have been reluctant to give them away, so I carefully put them away. Inyang carefully looked at Xiao Wanru's expression. Seeing that Xiao Wanru looked gentle and only the corners of her eyes were slightly red, she breathed a sigh of relief in her heart. No matter how smart Xiao Wanru was, it didn't matter. After all, they were mother and daughter. This could be used on the little heir, Great Elder Princess, and Princess Chen in front of her. She had to make good use of the resources of Great Elder Princess's mansion and let Great Elder Princess protect her sincerely. Even if the Marquis didn't want her to be the principal wife, with great elder princess's support, she could still be a co-wife. The Marquis's way was the Marquis's way, and her way was her own. When necessary, she could rely on and great elder princess, and there might be unexpected surprises. Are these the clothes mother wore in the capital city or in Jiangzhou? Xiao Wanru asked, gently stroking a corner of the clothes with her fingers, and her eyes were soft. These are the clothes you wore in the capital city. When you were in Jiangzhou, you didn't pay much attention to them, Inyang said. Xiao Wanru raised her head and glanced at Inyang. There seemed to be waves in her eyes that she couldn't understand, but in the end, she suppressed them and calmed them down. Inyang is loyal to mother. I will remember it. Thank you, Your Highness. This is what I should do. Even for the sake of the princess, I can't absolve myself of guilt even if I die 10,000 times. Inyang said gratefully and seemed to be moved to tears. She was really excited. If she could make Princess Chen lower her guard against her and treat her sincerely, she would be much more useful than and great elder princess. How is your matter? Xiao Wanru took the tea from Chu Lu, took a sip and asked slowly. Old Madam doesn't want me to marry into the mansion. The Marquis is persuading old Madam and Madame Jiang. Nyang hesitated for a moment, looked at Xiao Wanru, and suddenly stopped talking, as if she was unwilling to say more. But what's the problem? No problem. Don't worry, Your Highness. I don't have any problem. Nyang hurriedly shook her head. Is there really no problem? Xiao Wanru didn't believe it. Your Highness, I just want to avenge the princess as soon as possible. Madame Jiang treats the princess so badly that I can't wait to find her immediately. Nyang wiped away her tears and was extremely sad and indignant for her old master. Madame Jiang doesn't want you to marry into the mansion? Xiao Wanru immediately found the key point and asked. How can Madame Jiang let me marry into the mansion? She may have noticed something. She hurt the princess, and I want to avenge her. Nyang was extremely angry and gnashed her teeth. Do you need my help? Xiao Wanru said lightly. Nyang looked timidly. She looked at Xiao Wanru with her eyes full of expectation, but she stammered, If Your Highness can say, it would be best, but Your Highness may not be able to meet Madame Jiang. Moreover, if you meet Madame Jiang, I am afraid that you will not get along with her. Forget it. This kind of expectant and hesitant expression perfectly interpreted Nyang's meaning. Okay, I got it. If there is a chance, I will say it for you. Xiao Wanru waved her hand. Thank you, Your Highness. Thank you, Your Highness. Nyang was overjoyed. It was really a surprise that Princess Chen agreed to intercede for her. Sure enough, the princess's old clothes were better. You can leave now. If you find some of my mother's old things in the future, take them all. I will reward you handsomely. Xiao Wanru said lightly. Yes, I know. I will look for them again. Maybe I can find something else. Inyang nodded repeatedly. You can leave now. Yes, Your Highness. I will leave now. Inyang hurriedly stopped when she was ahead and left. When she got to the door, she looked at the sky outside and couldn't help showing a smile on her face. Then she left slowly. In contrast to her, Xiao Wanru's face turned cold in the room. She reached out to pick up the pair of earrings placed aside and looked at them carefully. As expected, they were her mother's earrings. Such earrings were custom-made and had their own records. Did they fall into Xiao Jing's hands because of Zhang's greed and finally become Inyang's? This was unlikely. Zhang's must keep a close eye on such an object and would never let Xiao Jing take it away. Besides, Xiao Jing would not give such an object to his mistress. Even if he bought some new ones, they would be better than this kind of engraved ones. Keeping a mistress did not require such good jewelry, nor did she need jewelry that could easily expose her identity and arouse Zhang's anger. Was it really the jewelry that her mother gave her? Yang was an ordinary servant girl, and she was not a servant girl of Marquis Xing's mansion as her mother's dowry. Therefore, she did not know that this kind of engraved jewelry would only be left to her children and would not be given to others. How could her mother really give it to her? The first idea was not the engraved jewelry, but the second idea was also reasonable. Then Inyang took it off from her mother's ears. If this was the case, did it mean that? The conjecture in her heart became more and more clear. Xiao Wanru's heart beat wildly as if it was about to jump out. She held the thick corner of the parcel with her hand and suppressed the shock in her heart. She hoped that it was true, but she felt that it was unlikely. Let's go to see Grandma. Only her grandma could solve her doubts. Of course, while solving her doubts, she would not tell her grandma the inside story for the time being, lest she rejoiced in vain. If her mother was really alive. If those candles were really effective and had been effective for a long time, were some things not absolute? But she felt that these things were too ridiculous. How could it be possible? She went out in a hurry and almost hit the door frame on one side. If Yujia hadn't pulled her quickly, she would have directly hit her head and fainted. If she hadn't hit her head now, she would also be dizzy. Grandma, she was going to see her grandma, as if only in this way could she confirm this conjecture. End of this chapter. Chapter 1192. Love to read? 5200 will provide you with wonderful novels to read. Update the latest chapter on medical skills of the Crown Princess as soon as possible. This is... Seeing the earrings in Xiao Wanru's hand, Nanny Gao screamed in a low voice. Ring and Great Elder Princess looked sad, but she didn't change much. She just murmured, "This is your mother's earrings." After saying that, her eyes were red. She turned her head in a hurry to hide the gaff in her eyes. "Grandma, my mother's earrings were not on the list given by Marquis Xing's mansion at that time. It was said that no one knew where they went." Xiao Wanru said, Maybe they were lost or given to a servant girl." Seeing her daughter's relics again, and Great Elder Princess was extremely sad. The grief in her heart couldn't be suppressed and rushed up in waves. There was only her daughter's figure in her mind. She vaguely seemed to see her daughter still looking at her coquettishly and acting coquettishly beside her. "Great Elder Princess, it's not like this. Nanny Gao had already burst into tears. Xiao Wanru turned her eyes to Nanny Gao, suppressed the excitement in her heart, and asked slowly, "Nanny Gao, tell me." Her grandma couldn't rely on the current situation, so she had to ask Nanny Gao. "Great Elder Princess, this is the earrings worn by the Infanta at that time." Nanny Gao cried uncontrollably. The scene at that time reappeared in front of her. When Great Elder Princess saw the Infanta had no breath, and Great Elder Princess fainted. But Nanny Gao saw clearly that the Infanta was wearing this pair of earrings at that time. "Nanny Gao, did you see it clearly?" Xiao Wanru looked at Nanny Gao deeply, and there was an irrepressible coldness in her eyes. She held the handkerchief tightly with her fingers and almost crushed it in her hand. "Your Highness, I saw it clearly. This pair of earrings was worn by the Infanta at that time. At that time, the Infanta was dressed in plain clothes, and only the 2 rubies on it were very conspicuous. I saw them at a glance. But at that time, Great Elder Princess fainted, and I went to take care of her. After that, Marquis Xing's mansion closed the coffin." "They were closed at that time?" Xiao Wanru was shocked and her lips turned pale. "Yes, although I was in a hurry to take Great Elder Princess away, I still took another look at her. Madam of Marquis Xing ordered someone to close the coffin. After that, Great Elder Princess fell ill. I was afraid that Great Elder Princess would be sad when she thought of Infanta, so I didn't mention it again." Gao Momo wiped her tears with a handkerchief. The Great Elder Princess, who was lying on the bed, was already crying uncontrollably. Even though it had been a long time, she did not dare to recall this part of her daughter's past. She even subconsciously forgot that she still had her grandson and granddaughter. She only needed to protect them. Xiao Wanru composed herself and said slowly, "That is to say, this pair of earrings should have been buried with my mother. It should not have appeared in my mother's hands, nor should it have been given to her by my mother." At this time, Great Elder Princess seemed to wake up. She suddenly raised her head and said in a hoarse voice, "It can't be your mother who gave it to her. Such earrings can't be given to a servant. With the map, giving this kind of jewelry to a maid is not good for her, but harming her. This mother, This mother must have done it for another reason. Great elder princess must have experienced it. Xiao Wanru and Nanny Gao's words reminded her again and again, which made her sober up and slowly come back to consciousness. Grandma, under what circumstances do you think the pair of earrings would fall into the hands of a maid? Xiao Wanru asked. It's impossible for her to take it out secretly. She is just a maid. No matter how much Xiao Jing dotes on her, it's impossible for him to allow her to steal your mother's earrings. As for Marquis Xing's mansion, even Madame of Jiang would not do such a thing. For a pair of earrings, they reopened the coffin and secretly took it out. If it was discovered, the entire Marquis Xing's mansion would be guilty. Neither Xiao Jing nor Madame of Jiang would do this. Great elder princess wiped her tears and said, both Xiao Jing and Madame of Jiang were scheming people. Although they were greedy for money, they would not do such a thing. If it was discovered, the entire Marquis Xing's mansion would be doomed eternally. At that time, whether Xiao Jing or Madame of Jiang would be punished, they would not want to see it. There must be a reason. Zhuozhua, don't worry. I'll check on this, mother. Great elder princess said again. At present, the most important thing was Xiao Jing. Grandma, when I saw Anyang just now, I deliberately ignored her for a while. She seemed to be very uneasy and walked around the room from time to time. She even looked at the door a few times. She seemed to want to leave. Xiao Wanru rolled her eyes slightly and told Great Elder Princess what she had observed before. In fact, she had arrived early and watched Anyang's movements from an attic opposite the room. She seemed to be very flustered and became more and more flustered. It seemed that if there were not maids guarding at the door, she would leave. Since she had made up her mind to send these old things of her mother into the mansion, why did she hesitate? Xiao Jing had always been calm. Once he had made up his mind, he would complete it step by step. It was impossible for him to retreat after sending them in. Therefore, it was very likely that Anyang sent these things out of her own will in order to please her grandma. After calming down, she felt that it was inappropriate, so she wanted to leave in circles. Xiao Wanru's guess was true. Do you mean that this is Anyang's idea? Reminded by Xiao Wanru, Great Elder Princess immediately understood. She nodded with deep and dark eyes, gritted her teeth hard, and said, "This woman is so bold. Is it possible that she really opened the coffin and stole your mother's old things? It's impossible. Xiao Jing must have done it. It's impossible for his mother to do it. My mother was not powerful in Marquis Xing's mansion. Later, the situation was like that. How could a servant girl of her have such great ability to do it under everyone's nose? If someone really did it, there were only 3 people in the entire Marquis Xing's mansion." Xiao Wanru paused for a moment and then slowly reported the 3 people, Old Madame, Madame of Jiang, and Xiao Jing. Except for these people, she couldn't think of anyone else who had the ability to do it in Marquis Xing's mansion. Great Elder Princess calmed down, thought about it carefully, shook her head and said, "It's impossible. It's impossible for the 3 of them to do that. It's just a pair of earrings. Although it's valuable, it's not very eye-catching for an aristocratic family like Marquis Xing's mansion, which has existed for such a long time. It's not worth burying a hidden danger for such a small thing." Xiao Wanru's heart beat wildly, and there seemed to be something that shocked her in her mind. She looked at Great Elder Princess and said in a faint voice that she could hardly hear clearly, "Grandma, do you think my mother is still alive?" What? Great Elder Princess didn't know what to say. Zhang Xian asked in astonishment. Nanny Gao heard it clearly and looked at Xiao Wanru in shock. Her lips trembled twice, but she couldn't say anything. "Grandma, do you think that if my mother didn't die at that time, and was taken out of the coffin later, the earrings would have been worn by her and my mother would have guarded my mother? Would the earrings fall into her hands?" Xiao Jing wouldn't have noticed these small details. Xiao Wanru stared at Great Elder Princess and took a deep breath, as if this was the only way to support her. The irresolvable hatred, like a cold icicle, pierced her heart fiercely. There was a roar in her head, and something was collapsing. Candles. There were candles, weren't there? Xiao Yenru could fake her death in this way, but what about her mother? Was it possible? She had just guessed it before, but the pair of earrings sent by her mother made everything possible. None of the previous possibilities were true. What about this one? She reached out to hold the teacup. Her hand fell on the teacup and shook slightly, and the cup also made a sound. When Great Elder Princess was stunned. She looked at Xiao Wanru blankly, as if she didn't hear her words clearly, but also seemed to have heard her words clearly. Her eyes were unfocused, and her lips were pale without a trace of blood. Grandma, if nothing else is possible, what about this one? Xiao Wanru's voice sounded lightly. Under her long eyelashes, her eyes were cold with a hint of blood. Her limbs and bones also became cold because of this sentence, like a frozen snowfield. Her mother was mentally abnormal at that time. If she was alive, she must have been guarded. With her mother's and Xiao Jing's temperament, how could they be good to her mother? They must want to get something from her. How could Xiao Jing treat his mother like this? His eyes were bloodshot. Not only Xiao Wanru, but also Great Elder Princess. Great Elder Princess supported herself on the edge of the bed and slowly straightened her body. Zhuozhua, Nyang must know something. All the events were related to her mother. Grandma, don't worry. I will hit her and make her tell everything in the end. Xiao Wanru raised the corner of her mouth sarcastically, narrowed her eyes slightly, and restrained the bloodshot color in her eyes. Didn't her mother want something? She would let her mother get it first and then lose everything. What secrets could her mother, who had become a stray dog, keep? Was it Xiao Jing's? Or her own? I'll keep an eye on her, Grandma. I don't need your men. I have men to keep an eye on her. Xiao Wanru shook her head. Great Elder Princess's men were all ordinary people. They were unable to deal with this kind of thing, and it was easy for them to be discovered. It happened that she got a new team of secret guards, which was the best candidate. She wanted Xiao Jing and Madame Jiang to be doomed eternally. She took a deep breath, suppressed the blood in her heart, and said, Grandma, I want to see Madame Jiang. If you go to see her directly, I'm afraid that you will attract attention. Great Elder Princess also calmed down and said, Grandma, don't worry. I'm not in a hurry, but Xiao Jing will be. Doesn't he want to bring my mother into the mansion? Madame Jiang is his biggest obstacle. He will think of a way to invite me to see her, Xiao Wanru said sarcastically with her eyes dark and bottomless. She was waiting for Xiao Jing's idea. End of this chapter. Chapter 1193. Love to Read divided by 5200 will provide you with wonderful novels to read. Xiao Wanru didn't wait for long. Coincidentally, she received a message from Zhao Shiran, saying that old madam was in a bad condition. Although old madam had done a lot of bad things to Xiao Wanru, which were known by the people in the capital city, Xiao Wanru had to go to Marquis Xing's mansion to see her because of filial piety. It seemed that old madam was dying. A person's death was like a lamp going out. Even if this elder treated her coldly, didn't like her, and even didn't take her seriously, she was still her biological grandmother. Xiao Wanru couldn't say no, so she would definitely go to see her. Xiao Jing believed it, and Xiao Wanru also understood it. No matter how fierce the conflict between her and old madam was, she had to go to see her at this time. Of course, Xiao Wanru didn't care about the so-called dying. Old madam was extremely selfish, and it was not a problem for her to live for a few more years. She would make a scene when she had a little problem, and everyone knew it, as if others treated her coldly. Of course, she was going to make a scene now. This was not only old madam's idea, but also Xiao Jing's idea. It came at the right time. Chu Luchen had been staying in Xiao Wanru's courtyard recently. Although Prince Chen was always sweating all over and had to take a cold shower, he still enjoyed it. He really couldn't stand it, so he stayed in the previous study for a few nights. After adjusting his mood, he came again. In his words, it was almost Xiao Wanru's birthday, and she was about to grow up. Every time Chu Luchen said these nonsense, Xiao Wanru would blush. Could this person's bottom line be a little lower? He expressed his intentions so eagerly that she really couldn't stand it. However, when he said these words, he looked gentle, as if he was talking about the way of a gentleman in books. Seeing Xiao Wanru blushing, he still wanted to provoke her, which made Xiao Wanru want to slap him. How could he do this? Qin Yan was very close to Xiao Wanru now and came over to see Xiao Wanru from time to time. Although she still spoke bluntly and showed that she was the most suitable person to protect her cousin, she was very flustered in front of Chu Luchan. Seeing Chu Luchan coming from a distance, she hurried back, for fear that this ruthless cousin would scold her again. She could see clearly that this cousin was only really gentle in front of her cousin-in-law. The rest of the time he was just a facade. He was a gentle and handsome man, but he was ruthless and cruel. He would never have tender feelings for women. So what if she was his cousin? It was better to please her cousin-in-law than to please him. Of course, she just couldn't bear to see her cousin-in-law being doted on by her cousin. Why couldn't it be her? If it was her, she would definitely protect her cousin. Cousin-in-law looked so weak and weak, what was the use of her? She might as well do it herself. Of course, most of these thoughts were kept in Qin Yan's mind. Concubine Lan had said that this matter was settled, so it was useless to think about it. In fact, she also understood. She just felt that her hard work for so many years was really in vain. Her cousin didn't appreciate it, which made her feel aggrieved. As expected, those who looked gentle on the surface were not good. They were not as good as those who were more straightforward. For example, Cheng in front of her cousin was not bad. He looked handsome and tall, and he spoke straightforwardly. He would not beat around the bush, and he would not scheme against her with a fake smile. Thinking about it this way, it seemed that she was not so depressed anymore. To her delight, she also received an invitation card from the Deputy Prime Minister's mansion. After arriving in the capital city, she hadn't received any invitation card from the mansion. After entering Prince Chen's mansion, she had been keeping a low profile and never appeared in front of others. Except for occasionally going to the Imperial Palace to see Concubine Lan, she just embroidered and chatted in Prince Chen's mansion for the rest of the time. Qin Yan felt that she was going to be moldy. It was rare for her to have such a chance to go out, so she could enjoy the scenery and relax. Xiao Wanru glanced at the gilded invitation card and smiled. She raised her watery eyes slightly. In fact, she didn't object to Qin Yan going to the Deputy Prime Minister's mansion at all. In fact, Qin Yan was very simple and wasn't really a bad person. Wen Shiqi was also a good person. If she could be with Wen Shiqi, it would be a good thing. The Deputy Prime Minister's mansion held a marriage selection banquet. Xiao Wanru didn't know how Madam of the Deputy Prime Minister heard about Qin Yan and invited her. It seemed that Madam of the Deputy Prime Minister was also very interested in her. In the last life, Madam of the Prime Minister had left a bad impression on Xiao Wanru and could even be said to be disgusting. Madam of the Prime Minister's partiality to Gu Shishu was almost outrageous. Because of a few words from Gu Shishu, Madam of the Prime Minister's mansion said that Xiao Wanru had behaved improperly and driven her out of the Prime Minister's mansion. At that time, Xiao Wanru was lonely and had nowhere to go. If she was driven out of the mansion, her situation would definitely be bad and even miserable. However, Qin Yan was not herself, and Gu Shishu was no longer the Gu Shishu of the past. Qin Yan, who was backed by Prince Chen's mansion, looked weak, but in fact, she was not easy to deal with. Even if Gu Shishu in the previous life fought with her, she might not succeed, let alone the Gu Shishu in this life was no longer the Gu Shishu in the previous life. Qin Yan wasn't like her previous life where she had no one to rely on. She wasn't like her previous life where her reputation was ruined. To the Prime Minister's wife, she only married her because she wanted to make up for it. Since she didn't make up for it, she probably wanted to chase her away. Many things had changed because of his rebirth. You can go and have a look and get to know other misses from aristocratic families in the capital. Xiao Wanru looked at the date on the card and said with a smile. The date happened to be the day after tomorrow, which happened to be after she went to Marquis Xing's mansion tomorrow. Although the invitation card of the Prime Minister's mansion was sent to Qin Yan, an unmarried miss, certainly couldn't go alone. Xiao Wanru, her cousin-in-law, should accompany her. Xiao Wanru was also invited by the Prime Minister's wife. It's really boring to stay in the mansion every day. It's good to go out and have a look. I haven't been to other places since I came to the capital. Qin Yan was a little tempted. I'll ask someone to prepare clothes for you. There's not enough time. Just bring suitable ready-made clothes. If there's anything inappropriate, just ask someone to make some changes. Xiao Wenru put down the card, looked at Qin Yan, and said with a smile. No. When I was with concubine Lan, she asked someone to make a lot of clothes for me. After I moved into the prince's mansion, my cousin-in-law also asked someone to make some clothes for me. I haven't worn many of them. Qin Yan shook her head indifferently and said, since she called Xiao Wenru cousin-in-law for the first time, she didn't feel embarrassed to call someone younger than her cousin-in-law. It's a banquet. You should dress up more beautifully. Xiao Wenru said with a smile. You don't have to be too beautiful. Anyway, I look like this. Qin Yan pulled the corner of her clothes and didn't care. Compared with ordinary misses from aristocratic families, she was much more generous and straightforward. Xiao Wenru smiled. Of course, she wouldn't tell Qin Yan that this was actually a blind date in disguise. In fact, when Shiqi and Qin Yan were quite suitable. One was gentle and elegant, while the other was straightforward and generous. Didn't you like the clothes of Butterfly Clothing Shop last time? It happens that there are new ready-made clothes this year. Don't you want a few sets to wear? Xiao Wenru asked with a smile. No girl didn't like beautiful clothes. Even if Qin Yan didn't think it was necessary, she was a little tempted at this time. She had seen a set of Xiao Wenru's clothes was particularly beautiful. Not only did it look gorgeous, but even the embroidery and toggle and loop buttons were different from ordinary clothes. At that time, she liked it very much, so she said so casually. Unexpectedly, Xiao Wenru kept it in mind. She was inexplicably moved and felt that her cousin-in-law in front of her was actually a capable person. Well, okay. Qin Yan thought for a while and felt that she really wanted it, so she didn't refuse. The clothes of Butterfly Clothing Shop were delivered in the afternoon. Madame Dong came by herself with 2 embroidery maids. If anything didn't fit, they could be changed directly. Seeing the clothes sent by Butterfly Clothing Shop, Qin Yan's eyes lit up. She reached out to touch them and couldn't bear to part with them. Each of them was very beautiful and she liked them. Seeing that she couldn't bear to part with this one, Xiao Wenru simply waved her hand and said with a smile, since you like them all, keep them. No, I can't wear so many clothes. I'll take this one. Qin Yan shook her head. Although she liked them, she didn't have to take all of them. These clothes are also very beautiful. Butterfly Clothing Shop made a lot of clothes this time. Xiao Wenru rolled her eyes and said with a faint smile. Really? How can I wear so many clothes? It's enough. You don't have to wear such fancy clothes at ordinary times. It's not comfortable to wear them all the time, Qin Yan said. Xiao Wenru's words made Xiao Wenru smile more brightly. She understood what Xiao Yenru meant. Xiao Yenru had to straighten her back when she wore such clothes. After getting familiar with Xiao Yenru's character, she found that Xiao Yenru was actually very careless. Sometimes she would practice in her yard and find it troublesome to wear such a complicated dress. Since Qin Yan had made up her mind, Xiao Wenru didn't insist. She asked someone to make a slight change for her, and the clothes fit her as if they had been specially tailored. Qin Yan left with her servant girl happily. Madame Dong also returned to Butterfly Clothing Shop with a group of people. The room became quiet. Looking at the sun outside the window, Xiao Wenru's eyes became cold. Tomorrow was the day to go to Marquis Xing's mansion. She had been looking forward to this day for a long time. There were some things that were engraved in her bones, constantly reminding her of the tragedy in her last life. Those grudges had to be avenged eventually. The next day, when Xiao Wenru got up, Chu Luqian had come back from the court. Yesterday, he knew that she was going to Marquis Xing's mansion today, so he had to accompany her in any case. Xiao Wenru didn't want him to go with her at first, but Chu Luqian said that if he didn't go, Xiao Wenru couldn't go either, so she had no choice but to follow him. The carriage went to Marquis Xing's mansion. In the carriage, Xiao Wenru nestled against Chu Luqian's chest with her eyes slightly closed. She looked calm, but her heart had been restless. What kind of roles did Marquis Xing's mansion, Xiao Jing, the Jiang family, Old Madam, and the third branch play in the tragic situation of her father and mother? Chapter 1194. Love to Read divided by 5200 provides you with wonderful novels to read. Update the latest chapter on medical skills of the Crown Princess as soon as possible. Hearing that Chu Luchen also came, Xiao Jing went to the door and opened the main door to invite him in. Chu Luchen got out of the carriage first, and then reached out to help Xiao Wanru get out of the carriage carefully. Xiao Jing's eyelids twitched, and he felt inexplicably uneasy. He was really surprised that Chu Luchen would come, and he always felt that something was wrong. Your Highness, please go to the front to serve tea. Xiao Jing reached out to lead the way. No need. Let's go to see old madam first. Chu Luchen smiled faintly with deep eyes. Okay. Chu Luchen was Xiao Wanru's husband. It was normal for him to want to see old madam. He winked at a servant beside him. The servant understood and hurriedly retreated to the side. Then he rushed into the inner courtyard to inform old madam. Since Prince Chen came in with them, old madam certainly could not make things difficult for Xiao Wanru. Xiao Jing accompanied Xiao Wanru and Chu Luchen to walk inside. When they arrived at old madam's Chuntang courtyard, they saw Nanny Yu waiting there from a distance. Seeing Chu Luchen and others coming, she hurriedly stepped forward and saluted. How is old madam? Xiao Wanru asked as they walked inside. Old madam's health. Nanny Yu lowered her head and looked very sad. Since old madam came back from Yuhui Nunnery, she has been in poor health. Yesterday, she fainted after saying a few words. First young mistress and I were so scared that we hurriedly sent a message to the princess. She is fine today. In other words, nothing happened today. She just looked scary yesterday, as if something was really going to happen. Of course, what happened yesterday was what happened yesterday. She couldn't say anything even if she recovered today. Xiao Wanru raised the corner of her mouth with a sarcastic smile. Old madam was really good at manipulating Xiao Wanru's illness as she wished. However, after today, she would not dare to pretend to be sick with her own body. After entering the main room, they bypassed the wide screen and went to the inner room. It was inconvenient for Chu Luchen to go in, so he waited outside in the room. Xiao Jing accompanied him, and Xiao Wanru followed Nanny Yu in. Old madam was lying on the bed with her eyes closed tightly, as if she was asleep. Looking closely, it could be seen that the corners of her mouth were slightly crooked, which should be the stroke mentioned last time. Old madam, Princess Qin is here to see you. After Nanny Yu asked Xiao Wanru to sit down, she walked to old madam's bed and said in a low voice. After shouting a few times, old madam slowly opened her eyes and said in a hoarse voice, What's the matter? Princess Qin is here to see you. Nanny Yu said in a low voice. Old madam rolled her eyes in the air and then turned to one side. She happened to meet Xiao Wanru's eyes. Disgust and even hatred flashed across her eyes. Then she slowly closed her eyes. When she opened them again, she had a smile on her face and said, It's you, fifth girl. How could she not hate her? She almost had a stroke because of the anger of this bitch. She had to be more careful in the future. She and Commandery Princess Qinghua and her daughter were not on good terms. The mother and daughter had come to anger her to death. The main reason why she was not angered to death was that her life was hard and precious. Just look at the Jiang family. She had been cursed to death. Old madam. Xiao Wanru stood up and saluted, and then slowly sat down, far away from old madam. In fact, there was nothing to say between them. For a moment, the room was quiet. There was an inexplicable awkwardness in the room. Old madam, as soon as Princess Qin heard that you were in poor health, she came to see you with Prince Qin. You have to get better. You can't be as willful as before and even refuse to take medicine. Seeing this situation, Nanny Yu could only say with a smile. Old madam, you don't take medicine? Xiao Wanru's eyes moved slightly and she answered. Since they were here, she would see how they would let her go to see the Jiang family naturally. Old madam, I just think of Infanta. Nanny Yu sighed and said, Don't talk nonsense. It has nothing to do with Infanta Qinghua. Old madam interrupted her unhappily, reached out to hold Nanny Yu's hand, and sat up tremblingly, just like a real old woman in her twilight years. She looked at Xiao Wanru with a pair of turbid eyes, and she looked calm. There was even a hint of regret in her eyes. Looking at Xiao Wanru, who wanted to say something but stopped on second thought, she looked like an ordinary old woman. Xiao Wanru held the handkerchief in her hand with indifferent eyes. She could come to see old madam because she was an elder and she was in poor health. She had to come to see old madam. She didn't think there was any affection, and neither did old madam. I'm old and have thought things through. What happened at that time happened because of my stubbornness. Although I didn't kill your father and mother, they were related to me after all. In my heart. Old madam couldn't go on and there seemed to be tears in her eyes. She picked up the handkerchief and gently wiped the corners of her eyes, suppressed the sadness in her heart, raised her head, looked at Xiao Wanru and said bluntly, "Fifth girl, I was wrong about what happened before." These words clearly appeared in Xiao Wanru's ears. Looking at old madam in front of her with tears in her eyes, Xiao Wanru felt that she was ridiculing her. Old madam was going to play the family card, and it was an old one. "Grandma, don't worry about it. It's all in the past." Xiao Wanru said, "I can't get over it. I've been eager to be strong all my life, and I've been wholeheartedly trying to make Duke Xing's mansion more prosperous. At that time, I even said in front of your grandma that I would definitely make our Duke Xing's mansion better and better. But now things have come to this point. It's all because of my partiality." Speaking of this, old madam burst into tears. After wiping her eyes hard with the handkerchief a few times, her eyes were very red. "Old madam, don't cry. It's not your fault. It's second madam who deceived you. It's her who made you think that Infanta is not good. It's all second madam's fault." Nanny Yu hurriedly stepped forward to persuade her and said in a low voice. In fact, the so-called low voice could be heard by everyone in the inner room. "Why not me? If it weren't for the fact that Madame of Qin had been raised by me since I was a child and seemed to be filial to me on the surface, I wouldn't have thought that she had a good temper and wouldn't have obeyed her, so that my eldest brother's family couldn't even protect a child. It's all my fault." Old madam cried again in a sobbing voice. She looked regretful and hateful, as if she was really remorseful. In her words, she put all the blame on Madame of Qin and said that everything was done by Madame of Qin. She was just deceived for a while and didn't really want to do anything to Infanta Qinghua. Xiao Wanru sneered in her heart and thought that old madam was really good at putting on a show. Because, every time the two of them shed all pretenses of cordiality, she would come over to make things miserable. She would be heartbroken and filled with regret. She would use her status as an elder to say some specious words. Such a scene, if it was someone who didn't know about it, they would definitely feel pity for her. She would appear to be a little domineering. She was half acting for herself, and the other half was for Chu Luchen beside her. "Fifth miss, I'm sorry for what happened in the past. I hope you can forgive me. I won't be deceived by anyone in the future, and I will make it up to you in the future." Old madam looked at Xiao Wanru expectantly, reached out her hand slightly and said, "Fifth miss, can you forgive me for being old and muddle-headed?" She wanted to write off all the things by saying that she was old and muddle-headed. It was a good idea. Xiao Wanru raised her eyes and looked at old madam without avoiding her gaze. Her eyes were faint and looked a little more clear than usual, but it also made people feel that she was very indifferent. "What's the matter, old madam?" Her words almost made old madam lose her composure. She pressed her hand on the corner of the quilt, afraid that she couldn't help but grab the cup placed on the table and throw it at Xiao Wanru. "Old madam." Sensing that old madam was angry, Nanny Yu hurriedly reached out to hold her hand, for fear that she would act violently and ruin things. "What can happen to me? I'm so old and it's useless to say anything. I just hope that all of you will be fine. The Jiang family, old madam said in a deep voice. "Fifth miss, although the Jiang family is such a person, she has suffered retribution now. If you speaking of this, old madam sighed again. She was very weak and her voice became even lower. There is a family heirloom. You can ask for it. It was originally given to your mother, and it has always been in your mother's hands. It is a family heirloom. Later, it fell into the hands of the Jiang family and I just found it. You can ask someone to ask for it and leave it to Hao in the future." Xiao Yuanhao was the heir of Marquis Xing's mansion. Of course, everything in Marquis Xing's mansion was given to Hao Xiao Wanru and the Jiang family were incompatible with each other, and there was a storm between the first branch and the second branch. This so-called family heirloom was originally in the hands of her mother, and now it should belong to Xiao Wanru didn't know it, but if she knew it, how could she let it stay in the hands of the Jiang family? Well, I'm tired. You can leave now. After saying that, old madam waved her hand and became more and more weak. Old madam! Old madam! Nanny Yu supported old madam and said in a low voice. Old madam's heavy breathing responded to her. It seemed that she had fallen asleep after a while. Nanny Yu carefully helped old madam lie down and covered her with the thin quilt. Then she bowed to Xiao Wanru with modesty and said, Your Highness, old madam is in poor health. She can often speak a few words a while ago, and then she falls asleep the next moment. Yesterday she suddenly fainted. I'm afraid that she is not in good health. Fell asleep? Did she not want to say anything more to her? Xiao Wanru was afraid that she would say something unbearable again. Xiao Wanru clearly saw old madam's forbearance just now, and she also knew that old madam almost lost control at that moment. Old madam was indeed old, and her control of her emotions was not as perfect as before. Without the help of the Jiang family, old madam could not make trouble alone. She stood up, glanced at old madam, and then turned to walk out of the room. Chapter 1195. Remember in 1 second, 800 mail sign /say, net wonderful pop-up window free reading. Xiao Jing was talking with Chu Luchen outside. Seeing Xiao Wanru come out, he asked with a smile, Why did you come out so soon? How is grandma? Old madam has fallen asleep. Xiao Wanru said. Nanny Yu came out from behind and bowed to Xiao Jing. Marquis, old madam wants Princess Qin to ask second madam for something. They had already discussed this, but Xiao Jing was a little hesitant. Chu Luchen came here with Xiao Wanru, which imperceptibly increased Xiao Wanru's bargaining chip. He didn't expect that Chu Luchen really cared about Xiao Wanru so much. If so, there might be some trouble later. But now he was in a dilemma. Even if he schemed against Xiao Wanru, it would be a hindrance to Xiao Wanru's reputation. At that time, he would stand up to support her. Even if everyone knew that Xiao Wanru had something to do with the Jiang family's matter, it would not cause any big trouble. He only wanted Xiao Wanru to bear the responsibility for the death of Madame of Duke Xing's mansion, but he didn't want Xiao Wanru's life. He even hoped that everyone would know about it and not make a big fuss about it. It would be bad for him if it got out of hand. Marquis Xing's mansion couldn't afford it anymore. The more Prince Qin cared about Xiao Wanru, the more he would suppress this matter, which might be a good thing. You bring Princess Qin over. Be careful that Jiang Shi injures Princess Qin. After making up his mind, Xiao Jing said calmly. When he mentioned the Jiang family, he didn't show any emotion, as if he wasn't talking about his wife. Your Highness, shall we sit outside for a while? It was reasonable for Chu Luchen to follow them to see old madam. But now they were going to see Madame Jiang. It was not convenient for Chu Luchen to follow them. Chu Luchen nodded, told Xiao Wanru, and then left with Xiao Jing. Xiao Wanru followed Nanny Yu to Madame's courtyard. It was still the small side door. Nanny Yu stood at the side door, pointed to the open side door and said, Princess, I have to take care of old madam, so I can't accompany you. The current situation of old madam was extremely bad. She couldn't be alone all the time. Who knew when she would fall asleep and never wake up? As the personal nanny of old madam, Nanny Yu naturally had to keep an eye on her. Nanny Yu, please wait a minute, Xiao Wanru said. Nanny Yu froze for a moment. She did not expect that Xiao Wanru would stop her from leaving. Nanny Yu, what do you think of Marquis Xing's mansion? Xiao Wanru didn't look at her, but looked at the yard and said, My mother used to live here, and so did my father. Now that they are all gone, everything here will belong to the second branch. However, Hao has become the heir of the Duke. It's really hard to say who will get it in the end. Nanny Yu's hand trembled and her face changed slightly. When she was about to speak, Xiao Wanru said, Nanny Yu, you know old madam's character best. Not only old madam, but also Marquis's character. Now old madam still needs Nanny Yu. If something happens to old madam, Nanny Yu, Even if you don't think about yourself, you still have children and grandchildren. These words were said very casually, but it was like a heavy blow to Nanny Yu's ears. It shocked her so much that her face turned pale, and she staggered and almost fell down. Yujia quickly helped her up and said with a smile, "Nanny Yu, you are tired. You can't stand still no matter how hard you try. Don't panic. Princess is the most considerate person. You have been serving old madam for a long time." This time, Nanny Yu's face turned livid. "Nanny Yu, go back first. Our princess has to go in and see Madame Jiang. She can't let Madame Jiang hold the heirloom of Marquis Xing's mansion." Yujie continued to say with a smile, as if she didn't see Nanny Yu's livid face. Xiao Wanru didn't look at her and was about to enter the door with Qing. "Prince, you should be careful." Nanny Yu's voice sounded weak and trembled unconsciously. Xiao Wanru didn't stop for a moment and entered the side door, followed closely by Qing. "Tell Princess not to go." Nanny Yu grabbed Yujie's hand and said anxiously, with cold sweat beginning to appear on her forehead, "Why can't she go? Didn't old madam ask our princess to go in and ask Madame Jiang for it?" Yujie looked at Nanny Yu with an innocent face and asked, "I can't say it. I'd better tell Princess not to go. Go away and don't go to ask for it," Nanny Yu said, sweating profusely. Looking at Nanny Yu, who was in a panic, Yujie blinked her eyes and suddenly smiled. She pushed Nanny Yu's hand away and took 2 steps back. "Nanny Yu, please go back. I want to go in with our princess to see Madame Jiang. It's been so long, and there has to be a conclusion." The smile on her face was a little strange, which made Nanny Yu feel scared. She still wanted to pull Yujie, but she saw Yujie turn around and enter the side door. The side door was closed silently. Nanny Yu was left alone outside the courtyard. Her face turned livid and pale, as if she was making a difficult decision in her heart. Inside the door, Xiao Wanru walked slowly to the main room. The dilapidated courtyard and the desolate road showed that they hadn't cleaned it up well. Madame Jiang, who was in the room, got the news and sat in the middle of the main room, waiting quietly for Xiao Wanru to come in. She had been waiting for a while and was very anxious at this time. She didn't see Xiao Wanru come in until she had drunk more than half a cup of tea. She made up her mind to teach Xiao Wanru a lesson today. She must leave a few marks on Xiao Wanru's beautiful face. It would be best if Xiao Wanru could be disfigured forever. Her sharp nails moved, and her eyes fell on Xiao Wanru's face. Xiao Wanru didn't wear gorgeous clothes today. She was wearing a light snow-colored dress with red plum blossoms at the corners. Her wide dress was also light, but there were colorful butterflies fluttering in it. When she walked, she looked like colorful butterflies dancing, delicate and elegant. Her skin was as white as snow and her lips were enchanting. Madame Jiang had to admit that Xiao Wanru's appearance was too outstanding even if she was unwilling to admit it. She was even more outstanding than Infanta Qinghua. Infanta Qinghua was one of the few beauties in the capital city and had a noble identity. She had no relationship with such a person, but the person she wanted to marry took a fancy to Infanta Qinghua, so the two of them came face to face. Madame Jiang thought that Xiao Wanru was good-looking, but she couldn't compare with Infanta Qinghua only in terms of family background. But even if Infanta Qinghua had a noble family background, it was still the same after marrying into Marquis Xing's mansion. Old Madame liked her, not Infanta Qinghua. Xiao Wanru's face in front of her seemed to overlap with a face in her memory. Even though she had gone crazy, her face was still so beautiful that it made people feel pity for her, and she even received love that she didn't get. She clenched her fingers hard into the flesh of her palm, and the sting made her wake up. It was Xiao Wanru in front of her, not Infanta Qinghua. Madame Jiang. Xiao Wanru entered the door, stood in front of Madame Jiang, and looked at her coldly. Her beautiful little face looked gentle, but her words were sharp. "Madame Jiang, you want to hurt me, how, and my mother? Have you ever thought that one day, you will die one day? Have you ever thought that one day you will end up like this? How dare you? I am your aunt." Madame Jiang was furious. "So what?" Xiao Wanru looked at her coldly and said in a gentle voice, "No one will care about you in such a place. Do you know why I came here? Because you're going to lose your life, and you're going to frame me. As if her heart had been cut by a sharp knife, something burst out in the dark. Madame Jiang suddenly raised her head and said loudly, "Nonsense." The relationship between her and Xiao Jing was not what Xiao Wanru understood. She didn't believe that Xiao Jing would abandon her, not only her, but also her daughter. Madame Jiang thought that as long as her daughter was still alive, Xiao Jing wouldn't dare to do anything to her. After all, Xiao Jing knew his daughter's means. No one in the mansion could compare with his daughter's means. "Don't you know whether I am talking nonsense or not?" Xiao Wanru said indifferently and sat down in a chair beside her. And Yu Jie stood beside her and looked at Madame Jiang with vigilance. Second uncle wants to marry a woman from another family and wants her daughter to become the daughter of the legal wife and then marry the prince. Based on your understanding of second uncle, is this reason enough? A woman from another family? No woman from another family can compare with my Ru. Madame Jiang said in a shrill voice and repeatedly warned herself not to be fooled by Xiao Wanru. It was impossible for Xiao Jing to abandon Ru, or to marry a woman from another family who was nothing. After all, a woman from another family was from another family. Could he really expect her to marry into the royal family and become the mother of the country in the future? Xiao Yanru? Xiao Wanru raised her eyebrows and said with cold sarcasm in her watery eyes, "Madame Jiang, you schemed and ruined my family. Do you think I will let you go?" Xiao Wanru, what do you want? Ru is now the emperor's treasure forest. Even if the emperor doesn't like her for the time being, he will like her later. If you dare to do anything to me, Ru will not let you go when she comes back. Madame Jiang was shocked and looked at Xiao Wanru nervously. Of course, Xiao Yanru didn't like the current emperor, but she was indeed the emperor's treasure forest before. At present, everything else was fake except for this identity. She was afraid that Xiao Wanru would really harm her. "Jiang, sure, second uncle wants to take your life, but you still foolishly want to live on? A daughter of another branch is indeed not enough, but if your daughter dies, then this daughter of another branch will be second uncle's only hope. I heard that second uncle has already discussed with others to send this daughter of another branch into the Fu with the identity of a D daughter. If there is a future, then the daughter of another branch with the identity of a D daughter will be more distinguished." Xiao Wanru said slowly, as if she was speaking word by word. Every word entered Madame Jiang's ears, but Madame Jiang seemed to be unable to understand it. She stared at Xiao Wanru with her eyes wide open and almost unfocused. She only heard one sentence. "My daughter is dead, my daughter is dead, my daughter is dead." Xiao Wanru, even if you are Princess Chen, don't talk nonsense. Ru is the emperor's treasure forest. She is talented and beautiful, and she is still young. Everything is possible in the future. Xiao Jing will not give up on her. Madame Jiang's hands trembled so much that she could no longer hold the cup in her hand. The cup slipped from her fingers and fell heavily to the ground. The shards flew everywhere, and one of them even cut a small wound on Madame Jiang's leg. But she seemed to know nothing, and her eyes were bloodshot. "Fake, it must be fake. Impossible, it is absolutely impossible." Chapter 1196. Everyone knows that Xiao Yanru is dead. You should have a confidant outside. You can ask someone about it. It's not a secret. Xiao Wanru continued. Madame of Jiang suddenly raised her head and looked at Xiao Wanru with hatred. "It's impossible. Ru will be noble in the future. How could she die?" "Indescribably noble?" Xiao Wanru raised the corner of her mouth sarcastically and said slowly, "If you mean the status of Baolin Forest by the indescribable nobility, it's a pity. I guess no one thinks that Baolin Forest is indescribable." She was extremely contemptuous. Her long eyelashes fluttered twice and she looked at Madame of Jiang leisurely as if she was looking at a clown. Her expression and behavior made Madame of Jiang mad. She had always looked down on Xiao Wanru and even once thought that Xiao Wanru's life was in her hands. At that time, she didn't kill Xiao Wanru mainly because she wanted to push Xiao Wanru to death step by step in a subtle way. She didn't expect that this mean girl, who had been looked down upon by her, would despise her beloved daughter so much one day. She couldn't bear it anymore. This mean girl was too arrogant and presumptuous. Ru-er is noble. She will be the future empress. How could she die? You deliberately slandered her. Madame of Jiang was overwhelmed with anger and hatred. She glared at Xiao Wanru and said in a hoarse voice, "It must be fake. Her Ru-er was destined to be a phoenix. How could she die now? Do you think that Xiao Yinru can't die because she is destined to be a phoenix?" Seeing Madame of Jiang's crazy red eyes, Xiao Wanru asked calmly, "Do you want to know how Xiao Yinru died? It is said that she was conceited and arrogant. She fought with a favorite concubine in the palace. After being injured, she was poisoned at night. No one in the palace helped her. A reed was swept and thrown into the mass grave. If she was bitten, I'm afraid that she would die without a whole body." The more furious Madame of Jiang was, the calmer Xiao Wanru was. There was even a faint smile on her face. It could be seen that she was in a very good mood. "Nonsense, nonsense." Madame of Jiang trembled all over. "I don't believe it. I won't believe it. Do you want to go to the mass grave to see Xiao Yinru's corpse?" Xiao Wanru suggested with an extremely happy smile on her white jade-like face. It could be seen that she was very relaxed. That kind of smile burned the Jiang family. Madame Jiang, without Xiao Yinru, second uncle, now has an excellent daughter. For the sake of this daughter, we have to let that mistress marry into our family. I heard that the mistress, who was not from a good family, became the miss of the censor's mansion, which was originally to pave the way for her and let her marry into our family legitimately. Of course, her daughter is the miss of the marquis's mansion in this mansion and can marry into a higher position. Xiao Wanru looked at Madame with her dark jade-like eyes calmly, but there was darkness at the bottom of her eyes, as if there was something deeply suppressed in her heart. It was the calm before the storm. If something happened to Xiao Yinru, it would be strange if Madame didn't go crazy. Did something happen to his daughter? Impossible. How could this be? Jiang Shi subconsciously objected to this idea. How could her daughter, who was exceptionally intelligent, have an accident? However, seeing Xiao Wanru's calm face, she felt that it might be true. In fact, such a lie was too easy to be exposed. It couldn't be false. Who would say that another person was dead for no reason? Moreover, this person was the emperor's treasure forest. "You liar!" Madame Jiang gasped and murmured. She covered her chest with all her strength, and her vision darkened. She was in a daze as if the figure in front of her was swaying with blood. "Madame Jiang, you killed my mother. Now all the retribution is on your daughter and son. When you were bent on harming people, did you ever think that God was watching what people did?" Xiao Wanru said coldly. Looking at Madame Jiang and watching her fall to the ground powerlessly, her eyes were cold. She was not a saint. She couldn't sympathize with Madame Jiang, who had killed her family. Not only would she not sympathize with her, but she would also tear apart all the truth. "No, it's not me, it's not me, it's Xiao Jing, it's Xiao Jing." Madame Jiang struggled and said loudly. It sounded like an explanation, but also seemed to mean something else. "Where is my mother?" Xiao Wanru suddenly asked. I don't know, it's Xiao Jing. Xiao Jing who is doing this." Madame Jiang's lips moved twice, and her voice was so low that it was almost inaudible. Xiao Wanru bit her cherry lips hard, lowered her eyes, looked at Madame Jiang, suppressed the palpitation in her heart, and asked temptingly, "Where is she now?" It was the easiest time for Madame Jiang to ask questions when she was so shocked that she lost her composure. I don't know. I don't know anything." Madame Jiang suddenly stood up, staggered and knocked over a small tea table. She bent down in pain, and the severe pain made her sober for a moment. She looked up at Xiao Wanru and said with a grim smile, "What do you want to know from me? Your mother? Your mother has been dead for a long time, and now her bones have been rotten." After saying that, she laughed wildly and stood up with the help of the table. Xiao Yinru was thrown into the mass grave, and it's hard to find a complete corpse. My second uncle has given up on you. He wants that concubine, but he doesn't want to bear the reputation of killing you, so he deliberately deceived me to come here. After I leave, you will die tonight, and he will blame your death on me. Now I am Prince Chen's wife, and I can bear such a reputation with Prince Chen's protection. You and Xiao Yanru have harmed me more than once. This time, I am willing to be the sword in second uncle's hand. Xiao Wanru said with her eyes as sharp as a cold sword. Madame Jiang's eyes darkened. She had intended to discuss Xiao Wanru, but she didn't expect that Xiao Wanru would make her suffer. How could her daughter, her only daughter, fall into such a situation? Xiao Jing had said that her daughter would be destined to be a phoenix in the future, so how could she die young? However, she had an intuition that what Xiao Wanru said was true. Shut up. Madame Jiang reached out to hit Xiao Wanru with a shrill voice. Yu Jie took a step forward and pushed Madame Jiang away. Madame Jiang hit the tea table behind her heavily and was in great pain. Madame Jiang, I came here today to see what happened to you. Back then, you wantonly killed my mother, and now everything is retribution. Xiao Jing can still have a beauty in his arms after you die, and he even married the daughter of the former censor. The status of the daughter of an aristocratic family is not lower than yours. It was only an accident that she became someone's mistress. Others will only pity her and then accept her as a beautiful wife. The next empress might be this mistress. Madame Jiang, you have nothing. Not only do you have nothing, but even your daughter has nothing. Xiao Wanru was aggressive. Madame Jiang's eyes darkened. She wanted to refute, slap Xiao Wanru hard, and tear Xiao Wanru apart. Wanru wanted to trample Xiao Wanru to death and proudly tell her that everything in Marquis Xing's mansion belonged to her and her daughter. Infanta Qinghua and Xiao Wanru were nothing. They were just stepping stones for her and her daughter. How could her daughter have an accident? Her daughter was destined to be a phoenix. Xiao Jing said, sitting on the ground. Madame Jiang was in a daze for a long time. She was trapped in her emotions and could not extricate herself. Sometimes she was crazy, sometimes she was angry, and sometimes she gritted her teeth. If someone saw Madame Jiang at this moment, he would definitely think that she was a lunatic. Her eyes were sometimes crazy, sometimes clear, and sometimes bloody. Madam, who was calling her? Madame Jiang pressed her head and looked straight in front of her. Finally, she saw a face full of wrinkles in front of her. Madam, who are you? Madame Jiang asked in a hoarse voice. Madam, I am serving you. The old maid said cautiously. No matter how she looked at Madame Jiang, she felt that something was wrong with her. Sitting on the ground, her hair was scattered, and her eyes looked crazy. Where is Xiao Wanru? Princess Qin has left. You want to see Princess Qin? The old maid shivered in fear, but she had to answer. She was serving Madame Jiang here. Although she was unwilling, she did not dare to let her sit on the ground. After all, the first young mistress was in charge of the mansion. Where is the first miss? Madame Jiang grabbed the old maid so hard that the old maid did not guard against it. She was pulled to her knees, and her throat was tightly locked. She almost choked. Pulling the clothes at her throat hard, the old maid struggled hard and said, "The first miss is dead." When she said this, the old maid was shocked. She struggled to break free from Madame Jiang, sat on the ground and took a few steps back. Then she shook her hands and said, "No. Madam, I was wrong. The first miss is fine. Nothing happened to her." The mansion gave an order that no one was allowed to tell Madame about it. Just now, in a panic, she accidentally told the truth. Madame Jiang's hands were trembling uncontrollably. There were only a few words in her mind. The first miss is dead. The first miss is dead. Seeing that Madame of Jiang's head was raised high and her eyes were frantically looking at a place in the air, the old maid was so scared that she shouted a few more times, but Madame of Jiang didn't respond. She hurriedly ran out to call for help. If Madame of Jiang really died, she would be in trouble. After going out of the courtyard, she thought for a while and ran directly to the outer study to find the first young master, who was Madame's biological son, without daring to go to old Madame or Master Ho. The old maid ran out quickly. In the outer study, Xiao Huan heard this and frowned. Did Princess Qin say it? Yes, Princess Qin said it. I heard it from the side. The old maid did not dare to say that she passed the news of Xiao Yanru's death to Madame Jiang and put the blame on Xiao Wanru. Go back and tell first Grandma to see Madame. Xiao Huangyan thought for a while and said, "Yes, I will go to first grandma now." The old maid breathed a sigh of relief. It was good that someone was in charge of this matter. She was afraid that no one would take care of it. If something happened to Madame Jiang, she would be blamed on her. The old maid hurriedly went to find Zhao Shiran. It was up to Zhao Shiran to make a decision. End of this chapter. Chapter 1197. Zhao Shiran didn't go to old Madame's Chuntang courtyard. She stayed in her own yard. Old Madame told her not to come, so she didn't want to get involved in it. It was not a good thing anyway. She'd better stay away from it. Suddenly, an old maid came to report. It was Xiao Huan who asked her to come, so she asked the servant girl to bring her in. "First, young mistress, please go and have a look. Madam is going crazy." As soon as the old maid entered the door, she panted. She ran from the inside to the outer study and then from the outer study to the inside. She was exhausted. "Tell me slowly. What's going on?" Zhao Shiran frowned and asked. The old maid calmed down and told everything in detail. She said that Princess Chun seemed to have told Madame about the first miss, and Madame seemed to have gone crazy at this time. Zhao Shiran suddenly stood up and asked, "Is Princess Chun still here?" Princess Chun stood for a while and then left. The old maid said, "Let's go and have a look." Although Zhao Shiran didn't want to see Madame, she had to go at this time. When she arrived at Madame Jiang's room, she saw that Madame Jiang was already sitting on the chair with messy hair. She looked at the door coldly. Her eyes were clear, and she was not as crazy as the old maid had described her to be. "Mother?" Zhao Shiran went forward cautiously and called her tentatively. Madame forced a smile on her face. It was very ugly. Such a smile was uglier than crying. "Something happened to Ru? First sister? Something happened to her." Since Xiao Wanru said it, she couldn't hide it, so she could only follow the topic and said, "Why didn't you tell me?" Madame screamed. "I was afraid that you would be too sad, so father told us not to tell you. He said that you could stay in the yard quietly." Since he said it, Zhao Shiran didn't hide it. "Xiao Jing means?" Madame's eyes were as vicious as a snake hiding in the dark. Although she looked calm, she was likely to come over and entangle others to death in the next moment. "Father was afraid that you would be sad," Zhao Shiran said cautiously. Madame looked abnormal. Her hair was messy and her clothes were stained. If he didn't look carefully, he would think that she was a crazy woman. He couldn't have really gone mad, right? This was Zhao Shiran's first thought. Even if she went crazy, it had nothing to do with her. It was Xiao Wanru's business. That was her second thought. At the moment, she just needed to deal with the Jiang family carefully. "Go find someone for me." Madame Jiang smiled, revealing 2 rows of white teeth. To Zhao Shiran, this was definitely not a gentle feeling. It was as if it wanted to devour people. "Father doesn't allow you to come into contact with other people," Zhao Shiran refused. "Zhao Shiran, you married my son. Do you have an ulterior motive?" Jiang Shi's eyes suddenly moved and fell on Zhao Shiran. Zhao Shiran panicked and hurriedly shook his head. "Mother, how could I have any ulterior motives? Marrying into the family was also the intention of the 2 families. Wasn't it Mother's intention at that time? Our meaning? Would it drag on for 3 years? After delaying for 3 whole years, you still married into my family in the end. Is it because you want something?" Madame Jiang seemed not to hear Zhao Shiran's words and still stared at her. Her stare made Zhao Shiran feel scared and involuntarily turn her eyes away. She had always been proud of her intelligence and felt that she was not inferior to men, let alone those unmarried women. At the moment, she felt that Madame Jiang seemed to know something. But how could it be possible? "Do you think we don't know anything?" "Huan doesn't know anything either," Madame Jiang continued. Jiang Shi continued. She spoke very slowly, as if she was weighing every word. "If you really don't know anything, have you found out anything, or have you achieved your goal?" Zhao Shiran's heart skipped a beat. She felt that her secret had been discovered by everyone. Her face turned red and she was angry and annoyed at the moment. She had thought that no one would know, but in fact, everyone knew how she felt. She felt aggrieved and angry, as well as a kind of anger of being betrayed. Everything he did was seen by everyone, but no one said a word. They only saw him like a clown tossing and turning. If it was someone else, it would be reasonable. But what about Xiao Hu? Could it be that he was just watching from the side, acting as if he didn't know what was going on? Madam, I think you are mistaken. I really want to marry into your family. As for the 3 years, it is because my father has always opposed this marriage, but I want to marry Hua. That's why it has been delayed for 3 years. Mother, if you think that our family has other intentions, you can tell Hualan to divorce me. Zhao Shiran said coldly. It doesn't matter whether you are mistaken or not. But if you are not willing to help me, even if nothing happens, I will make trouble for you. Of course, Madame Jiang was not sure whether it was a problem for Zhao Shiran to marry into the family. She said it because of what Xiao Jing had said to her before, and now she was using it to deal with Zhao Shiran. Go and find someone. Yes, mother. Zhao Shiran had to lower her head. Madame Jiang looked abnormal, so she did not dare to put up a life-and-death struggle. If you don't send someone over, I will kill myself here and Liva will say that you forced me to die. Madame Jiang was afraid that Zhao Shiran would not come back, so she threatened. Mother, don't worry. Zhao Shiran answered and left. When she walked out of the yard, she exhaled a heavy breath, gave a few orders to her personal servant girl, and then went back. Even if there was something wrong, she could not be blamed. She was asked by Xiao Hua, and to comfort Madame Jiang. As for what Madame Jiang would do next or what might happen, it had nothing to do with her. As long as she thought that Xiao Hua and might know that she married into the family for other purposes, she would feel burning with hatred. Xiao Wanru left Madame Jiang's place and went to the outer courtyard. Chu Luchen was waiting there. Seeing her coming, he asked gently, "How is she?" "Forget it. She is not in good spirits." Xiao Wanru shook her head and said in a low voice, "Even if she is not in good spirits, we have to find her. After all, it is the inheritance of your Marquis Xing's mansion. It can't be lost just like that." Chu Luchen raised his handsome eyes and looked at Xiao Jing. "Don't worry, Prince Chen. I will ask someone to ask later. But it is possible, not necessarily possible." Xiao Jing said with a wry smile, "Madame Jiang has always been arrogant. Second uncle, if you really can't get it, forget it." Xiao Wanru seemed to not value this so-called heirloom and stopped him in a gentle tone. "How can I let Madame Jiang lose it? She will get Yuan Hao's inheritance anyway." Xiao Jing shook his head and said with a guilty face, "This matter can't be rushed. I hope Princess Chen can wait for a few days and wait for me to deal with Madame Jiang's affairs slowly in case she does anything extreme. Ru is gone, Madame Jiang." Speaking of this, Xiao Jing's eyes turned red, as if he was a loving father who really loved his daughter. However, in Xiao Wanru's eyes, such a sad expression was full of sarcasm. Xiao Jing was really good at acting. Sure enough, like parents, like children. Looking at Xiao Jing's behavior, she could think of Xiao Yenru. "Second uncle, you really don't have to urge me. This matter can't be rushed and I won't ask for it in a hurry." Xiao Wanru said calmly, as if she just went to see Madame Jiang's affairs, as if she just went to see an ordinary person instead of Madame Jiang, who had been framing her. She was not anxious, and there was no hatred or annoyance. She was very calm. Xiao Jing was surprised and did not understand why Xiao Wanru could be so calm. He had always been very clear about the resentment between Madame Jiang and Xiao Wanru. If it were him, he would have been jealous when he saw the enemy who had framed him before in front of him. How could he be so calm? He felt uneasy. Xiao Wanru's calm attitude was too different from what he had imagined. "Do you want to go back to the mansion?" Chu Luchen suggested to Xiao Wanru. "Not now. Stay with second uncle for a while. Madame Jiang's current situation makes second uncle feel bad," Xiao Wanru said softly. "Well, I happen to have nothing to do today." Chu Luchen nodded and turned his eyes to a painting hanging on the wall. He leaned back in the chair and asked, "Marquis Xing, is this painting authentic?" It was not the current painting style and looked a little old, but the strength and artistic conception of the painting were the best. "Prince Chen, you flatter me. This is not an authentic painting. It's a fake. I'm sorry to make you laugh at me, Your Highness. Xiao Jing said with a red face and felt ashamed. How could it not be an authentic painting? Have you asked someone to check it? Chu Luchen seemed to be interested and asked curiously, since it is not an authentic painting, why is it hung here? Could it be that the dignified Marquis Xing's mansion can't even afford to hang an authentic painting? No, Your Highness, you may not know this, but although this painting is not the original, it is the best imitation. I like it very much. Before finding the original, this is also a rare work, so I asked someone to hang it up. Basically, this place does not receive guests, so it is fine to hang it up and look at it yourself. Xiao Jing explained with a red face. This study was in Xiao Jing's courtyard. Just now, Xiao Jing came all the way to bring Chu Luchen here. Originally, he thought that Chu Luchen would not stay here for a long time. Unexpectedly, Xiao Wanru deliberately asked Chu Luchen to stay, but Chu Luchen saw the fake painting and felt very uncomfortable. Seeing that he was so uncomfortable, Chu Luchen stopped asking about the painting. Instead, he paid attention to other things in the study and asked about some small decorations in the study from time to time. Xiao Jing asked questions and answered him, so it was not boring. Xiao Wanru sat by the window of the study and looked at the back window. Her eyes twitched slightly and her long eyes looked at an old maid in the courtyard. An old maid. This old maid attracted her attention. Although she just glanced at her casually, she could tell that this old maid was different from the servants in other courtyards. Chapter 1198. In fact, in terms of appearance, this old maid was no different from other old maids. She looked to be in her 40s and looked very stout. She looked just like the ordinary rough old maids in the yard, but if one took a closer look, they would find that the clothes worn by the rough old maids were not as good as the ones worn by this old maid. If it weren't for her stout appearance, Xiao Wanru would have guessed that she was a supervisor nanny. But judging from her stout appearance, she was just a rough old maid. She was very fat, big and strong. The other servants in Xiao Jing's yard were all very thin. Even the rough old maids with brooms were not as big as she looked. She was the only one here, which showed that she was different from the servants Xiao Jing usually used. Besides, Xiao Wanru had returned to the mansion for a period of time. When she returned to the mansion before, she was sure that she had never seen this old maid or heard of such an old maid. If she saw such an old maid, she would definitely remember her. Even if she didn't see her, the people around her would definitely report it to her if they had heard of it. She had asked Qing to keep an eye on Xiao Jing's yard before, but she hadn't found anything unusual or anyone unusual. This old maid should have entered the mansion recently, or she entered the mansion after she got married, so she knew nothing about her. However, this old maid obviously didn't seem to have just entered the mansion. Seeing that there were people bowing to her along the way, it could be seen that her identity was not ordinary. Xiao Jing was a suspicious person. He would not treat a servant who had just entered the mansion and looked like a rough old maid as his confidant. This person was very suspicious. Your Highness, I'm going out for a walk. Xiao Wanru stood up in boredom. Don't go too far. Just look around in case I can't find you when I leave. Chu Luchen waved his hand lazily with a smile and said, I know. Xiao Wanru nodded. Princess Qin, go to the yard in front and have a look. There are some new flowers planted there. Some have bloomed, and some haven't. They are close to here. Xiao Jing suggested with a smile. Okay, I'll walk around here first and then go over to have a look, Xiao Wanru said. Walking out with the two maids, Xiao Jing frowned uneasily. Suddenly, he strode to the door and ordered the manservant standing by the door, take Princess Qin to enjoy the scenery. Tell the servants in the yard to leave, lest they offend Princess Qin. Marquis, I understand. The manservant cleverly replied and retreated to the door. Xiao Wanru came out. There were not many servants outside the door. When a few servant girls and old maids saw Xiao Wanru come out, they immediately stood still and saluted her. After a while, the fat old maid she saw before had disappeared. Looking in the direction where she had gone just now, Xiao Wanru walked casually. There was an attic over there, which was higher than the entire courtyard. Xiao Wanru had seen the attic from a distance in her own courtyard before. "Your Highness, come with me. I'll take you to see the newly arranged flowers. They were newly arranged after you got married." Marquis said that there were fewer and fewer people in the mansion. Seeing that the misses got married one by one, it was no longer lively, so he specially asked someone to come over and plant a lot of flowers. The manservant stepped forward cleverly and said with a smile. His words were very pleasing and explained Xiao Jing's sudden action of planting flowers. This kind of thing used to be the concern of the inner court. A man couldn't always pay attention to planting flowers and grass. "What's that?" Yu Jian narrowed her eyes and pointed in the direction of the attic under Xiao Wanru's hint. "There are just some sundries there. There's nothing good there. It can't even be used for living." The manservant said with a smile and then made way for her to go out. "Your Highness, please come with me. The courtyard is very close to here." Xiao Wanru looked up at the attic. The curtain above the attic was tightly drawn, so she couldn't see what was inside. It was just an attic, so there was no one there. A scene suddenly flashed through her mind. She seemed to have seen the light in this place at night. Did it come from this attic or somewhere else? After all, it was a little far away, and it was easy to make a mistake between the distance and the distance. It might be here or not. She took a deep breath and knew that she couldn't find out even if she wanted to. Without a legitimate reason, how could she, as a niece, check her uncle's room, even if it was a storeroom? "Let's go and have a look." She slightly raised the corners of her mouth and said lightly. She had helped the Jiang family today by holding Xiao Jing back. At this time, the longer they delayed, the more trouble the Jiang family could make. They went to the courtyard on the right of Xiao Jing, which was an empty one. Xiao Wanru had never been to these places before. Xiao Jing was Xiao Wanru's second uncle. On the one hand, Xiao Wanru was wary of him, and on the other hand, there was nothing to see in Xiao Jing's place. Unexpectedly, he built a courtyard now. Thinking about it carefully, she found that the courtyards around Xiao Jing's courtyard were all empty. However, there were few masters in Marquis Xing's mansion, and the second branch was in charge before. The third branch was remote and could not pose a threat. The first branch was not big, and almost all the courtyards were in the hands of the second branch. Xiao Jing wanted to live comfortably so as not to be disturbed. Therefore, it was not a big deal to empty a few courtyards around him. Xiao Wanru had known this pattern when she was in Marquis Xing's mansion, so she didn't care about it. But now she was inexplicably a little confused. There were indeed many flowers in the courtyard, which had just been planted. There were also a few shrubs, which were placed not too far away, making the original courtyard full of vitality. It was summer. There were no fragrant flowers in spring, but there were still some heat-resistant flowers in full bloom in the sun, which made the scenery quite beautiful. "When did second uncle ask someone to arrange it? It's really good." Xiao Wanru praised as she walked and asked casually. Marquis just thought of it by accident. He thought that after arranging it here, he could walk around and have a look when he is tired. "It's very pleasing to the eye." The servant replied and kept leading the way in front of Xiao Wanru in a fawning manner. "Go over there and have a rest. The princess is not from another mansion, and she knows the way." Yu Jia impatiently pointed to a pavilion not far away and said, "You are tired of running around, and our princess is even more tired of running around with you." "I'm slow. The Marquis asked me to accompany the princess. If the princess dislikes me, how can I report to the Marquis?" The servant said with a sad face and felt aggrieved. "Don't worry. We won't say it. If you don't say it, no one will know." Yu Jia curled her lips and said indifferently, "How can no one know it? This mansion is full of people. Even if we don't say it, someone will definitely see it and tell the Marquis. Sister Yu Jia, please have pity on me. Don't send me away. The Marquis has prepared a board for me. I dare not be lazy." The servant said pitifully, "Yu Jia, don't make things difficult for him. Just take him with you." Xiao Wanru said to help the servant out. "Thank you, Princess Jin. Thank you, Princess Jin." The manservant was overjoyed and bowed repeatedly. Seeing how eager he was, the master and servants all stood up. It was really hot. After walking a few steps, Xiao Wanru went to the pavilion and sat down. go and get a pot of water and a cup. Our princess will rest here for a while and enjoy the flowers, Yujia instructed the servant. Seeing that they sat down and did not walk around casually, the servant breathed a sigh of relief and said, "I'll get it right away." As he said, he ran out quickly. This place was close to the marquis's courtyard, so he naturally went to the marquis's courtyard to get the things. Qing, did you see the old maid who did rough work before? Xiao Wanru's eyes fell on a bush in front of her, but she said to Qing, "Your Highness, I didn't notice her just now." Qing shook her head in shame. She had been following the princess at that time, so she only paid attention to the people in the room and didn't notice the person outside the window. When the princess pulled her sleeve to hint to her, the person had disappeared. "Your Highness, I saw her," Yujia said. She was in the same direction as Xiao Wanru at that time. Seeing Xiao Wanru looking out of the window with confusion, she took another look at it. She was shocked to see such a big old maid at the sight of it. "Have you heard of such an old maid in Xiao Jing's courtyard before?" Xiao Wanru's eyelashes fluttered and she asked. If she saw such a person, her servant girl would have reported it to her long ago, so she must have never seen such a person before. "I've never heard of such a fat man with such a thick waistline. It seems that he has great strength. I've never heard of such a person in the marquis's mansion, not to mention in the marquis's courtyard. I've never heard of such a person in the whole marquis's mansion." Yujia said quickly, "If I see such a big old maid, I will definitely tell you about it, Your Highness. It seems that she is stronger than me." He was tall and burly, looking as if he had a lot of strength. It was an indescribably strange feeling. "Your Highness, I saw an old maid looking at the courtyard again and again outside the gate of the courtyard. Although it was very hidden and she didn't seem to pay much attention to it, the old maid squinted at us from time to time. At a glance, I knew that she was staring at Marquis Xing's residence. I don't know whether she was staring at us or Marquis Xing." Reminded Xiao Wanru of the other ordinary old maid she saw outside the gate of the courtyard just now. She shouldn't be staring at us. She should be staring at Xiao Jing. Xiao Wanru shook her head. Old Madam planned to plot against her with Xiao Jing again. At this time, neither Old Madam nor Xiao Jing dared to let anyone stare at her, for fear of being discovered by her. If someone was staring at them outside the gate of the courtyard, it was most likely Zhao Shiran. Xiao Wanru made an unintentional guess, but she guessed it right. After watching for a while, the servant came back in a hurry with a teapot and teacups. After putting them on the table, he stood aside with his hands and shoulders down. He didn't directly drink them, which was very well behaved. Yujia poured a cup of tea and placed it on the stone table. Xiao Wanru took it and was about to drink it. Qing wanted to stop her, but when she saw that Xiao Wanru had drunk a mouthful of tea, she waved at her anxiously. Xiao Wanru shook her head calmly. It was impossible for Xiao Jing to harm her at this time. Chu Luchen was still sitting in Xiao Jing's courtyard. It was about time. Chapter 1199. Marty. A servant came in with a panicked face and reported, Madam is at the door." "What is she doing at the door? Let her go back." Xiao Jing said unhappily and waved his hand. He thought that the so-called door was the door of his yard. So many people are watching? I dare not go up to pull Madam," the servant said with a sad face. He was a servant guarding at the door, who was responsible for reporting to the inside for the guests. Marquis Xing's mansion used to be very prosperous. People came to visit from time to time, and sometimes they sent gifts and visiting cards. There were a lot of benefits at the door, and the servant was also very busy. But now it was different. He didn't see many people come for half a month. Today, Prince Chen and his wife came over. The servant felt that there would be nothing to do today, so he rested beside the small room at the gate. Suddenly he heard someone calling the door, so he came out lazily and wanted to see who it was. When he saw the person in front of him, he didn't recognize her at the moment. She was unkempt and even her clothes were messy. At first glance, she looked like a beggar. He said impatiently, Go away. This is not the place for you to be a beggar. Go to another corner and squat down." Don't block the entrance of the mansion." As he said, he stepped forward and pushed her. The woman was pushed to the ground and fell heavily on the ground. She screamed, which attracted the attention of people passing by. Some people began to stop and didn't know what had happened. Marquis Xing's mansion had a bad reputation now. Everyone knew that the so-called etiquette, righteousness, integrity and shame of this family was actually not so good. They just looked good on the surface. The madam of their mansion was like this, so was the first Mississippi. Even Marquis Xing didn't seem to be a good person. Otherwise, how could he have been demoted again and again? He used to be a powerful minister in the Imperial court, but now he declined so quickly. Some sharp-eyed people found that although the woman's clothes were messy, the material she was wearing was good, and she didn't look like a real beggar. An old maid suddenly rushed out of the crowd and threw herself at the woman. She cried loudly, "Madam, madam, how did you end up like this?" She reached out to pull the woman who had fallen to the ground. Was this a madam? Everyone looked at each other, and those who didn't want to watch the fun also stopped. There was obviously something wrong. Which madam was pushed out by the servant of Marquis Xing's mansion? What did Marquis Xing's mansion want to do? Why did Madame come to Marquis Xing's mansion? The servant was so scared that he trembled. It turned out to be Madame. He carefully looked at the woman in front of him. The woman was half carried by the old maid, and her hair fell down, so he could not see her face clearly. But was it Madame? There were only a few Madams in the mansion. It could not be the third Madame or the old Madame. As for Madame Jiang, she had not appeared in public for a long time and had always been in her own yard. How could there be any Madame? Thinking of this, the manservant became more courageous. He put his hands on his waist and pointed at the woman, saying loudly, "Where did you come from? Why are you talking about Madame? Our Madame is fine in the mansion. Who do you want to pretend to be?" It was actually a fake? The onlookers looked at the slightly flustered woman and then at the old maid who was comforting her. They all felt a little strange. Is she really here to pretend? "You're talking nonsense. This is Madame. How dare you treat Madame like this? Is it the Marquis? Is it the Marquis?" The old maid was so angry that she turned her head and said with hatred, "Where does this crazy old maid come from? What nonsense are you talking about? Beat them out." The manservant was also annoyed and said loudly. Several other manservants at the gatehouse came out with sticks and wanted to drive away the troublemakers. Everything in Marquis Xing's mansion was not going well, and the master of the mansion was in a bad mood. It was better not to report such a trivial matter. It was not a big deal to drive them away. It seemed that they were blackmailed. It was enough to beat them so that they did not dare to come to the door. Several manservants were about to step forward fiercely. The woman with disheveled hair and a dirty face suddenly stood up straight, pushed her messy hair to the back of her head, and revealed an extremely thin face. Her face was gloomy with some viciousness, and her eyes seemed to be dipped in venom. She stared coldly at the manservants in front of her. Seeing her face clearly, several manservants suddenly stopped and trembled in horror. Madame Jiang had always been in charge of the affairs of the Marquis's mansion. The servants were very afraid of Madame Jiang. At the first glance of Madame Jiang's face, the manservant's legs went soft. "Madame, how dare you be so presumptuous in front of Madame? Do you want to die?" The old maid rebuked them sternly. "Greetings, Madame." The manservants threw away their sticks one by one and bowed to salute, no longer as arrogant as before. For a moment, they did not know why Madame Jiang came in from outside. Was she really Madame of Marquis Xing? The onlookers looked at each other. Was this really Madame of Marquis Xing? Why did she look so embarrassed? "Go and report to Xiao Jing that I am back." "I'm not dead. I'm back," Madame Jiang said with hatred. Although her body was trembling slightly, her eyes were cold. In the current situation, the manservant did not dare to punish her, and hurriedly answered and went inside to report. There was too much information in her words, and more onlookers came. There was obviously something wrong here. Madame Jiang was Madame of Marquis Xing, and she was Marquis Xing's wife. Why did she say that she was back? Where did she go before? And why did she look so embarrassed? Did she almost die? Who wanted to kill her? Madame of Marquis Xing had committed many crimes before, and some of them were hidden. In the eyes of outsiders, although it was said that Madame of Marquis Xing was a vicious person, she would not have been harmed to such an extent. After all, she was the most powerful master in Marquis Xing's mansion. Who wanted to kill her? In this mansion, in addition to old Madame of Marquis Xing, there was only Marquis Xing. Just now, Madame Jiang said that she was looking for Marquis Xing. Could it be that Marquis Xing wanted to kill Madame of Marquis Xing? With this speculation, some well-informed people suddenly remembered the rumor that Marquis Xing had a mistress who was going to marry into Marquis Xing's mansion. Everything in front of them seemed to be explainable. Could it be that Marquis Xing wanted to kill Madame of Marquis and make room for the mistress? Looking at her messy and dirty appearance, she did not look like a marquis at all. Could it be that she narrowly escaped? This was truly a shocking matter. The people outside were talking about it, and the topic changed from suspicion to certainty. Some people even suggested that it was because Xiao Baolin, who was in the Imperial Palace, died that Madame of Marquis Xing became worthless and made Marquis Xing spoil his concubine and kill his wife and do such a heartless thing. Looking at the hateful eyes of Madame of Marquis, one could tell that this matter could not be settled easily. More and more onlookers came. When Xiao Jing came out, the door had been tightly surrounded. In fact, the spacious field in front of the mansion was surrounded by a lot of people. In just a short while, many people had been alarmed. Something big had happened in Marquis Xing's mansion. Xiao Jing came over in a hurry and almost tripped on his way. Why did Madame Jiang appear outside the mansion? Wasn't she under guard? How could she come out? He did not allow anyone to visit Madame Jiang's courtyard. His purpose was to lock her up until she died. This time, he wanted to kill Madame Jiang with Xiao Wanru's hand and then let his mother marry into Marquis Xing's mansion justifiably. Without Madame Jiang, everything would be reasonable. He had already talked it over with old Madame. After Xiao Wanru returned to the mansion today, he would let Madame Jiang kill herself. The reason was that she could not bear Xiao Wanru's coercion and committed suicide. With Xiao Wanru's help, this matter could not be traced to him. He could also express his goodwill to Princess Chen and not hold Princess Chen responsible. He could only say that it was just an accident and Xiao Wanru was not to blame. What he wanted was just a rumor that might reach the ears of the emperor, to frame a reasonable reason for Jiang's death. As soon as Madame Jiang died, the only obstacle was gone. In the future, he could find another way to send his daughter out. It was justifiable. She was a new daughter and a daughter of lineal descent. But what was going on now? Why did Madame Jiang come out? It could not be released by Xiao Wanru. When Xiao Wanru went to Madame Jiang's courtyard, he secretly asked someone to keep an eye on her and watched her leave. Nothing happened, but he heard Madame Jiang's sharp voice coming from inside. Xiao Wanru and Madame Jiang would definitely not be calm when they met. This was what he had guessed. The relationship between the two of them was like fire and water. It was impossible for Xiao Wanru to just go to see Madame Jiang without saying anything else to provoke her. It was normal for Madame Jiang to scream when she lost control of her emotions. For this reason, he specially arranged some servant girls and old maids to work near Madame Jiang's courtyard. These people would be evidence to prove that Xiao Wanru had angered Madame Jiang and that Xiao Wanru had said something. After Xiao Wanru's death, Madame Jiang couldn't take it easy and died. When he came to the gate of the mansion and saw a large group of people in front of the gate, Xiao Jing showed anger on his round face. Madame Jiang disappeared from the mansion inexplicably and came to the gate of the mansion. What did she want to do by making such a big scene? However, Madame Jiang had always been selfish. At the moment, he could only coax her to calm her down and then make plans later. In order to coax her, he could even agree to some excessive conditions for her. Anyway, Madame Jiang would die in the future. He would not let her live and ruin his plan. Thinking of this, Xiao Jing felt a little relieved. He didn't know that Madame Jiang's temperament had changed greatly because she knew that her daughter was dead. "Madame, why are you here? What happened?" Xiao Jing walked up to Madame Jiang, tried to calm down the anger in his heart, and showed a little concern. Regardless of Madame Jiang's dirty clothes, he reached out to help her and asked gently. Looking at his eyes and actions, It seemed that he really didn't know anything and was considerate to Madame Jiang. No matter what happened to Madame Jiang, he should first appease her. Xiao Jing, do you think it's strange that I didn't die and appeared here? You tried your best to kill me and make room for your mistress. Are you satisfied now? Madame Jiang pushed Xiao Jing's hand away and screamed in a hoarse and vicious voice. Chapter 1200. Xiao Jing didn't expect that the madam would say something like that. He took 2 steps back to steady himself. His eyelids twitched and he immediately knew something was wrong. Madam, are you still in a bad mood? Why are you thinking about such trivial things again? Let's go back. Someone, go find a doctor. Madam's phlegm is acting up again. Xiao Jing reacted quickly and grabbed the madam's hand. He pulled her hand hard, but it seemed that he was just pulling her hand gently. He pulled Madame Jiang to follow him for a few steps. A manservant answered and rushed out to look for a doctor. So the Marquis's wife hadn't appeared in public recently because she was crazy? The so-called phlegm syndrome meant that her mind was confused by phlegm, and sometimes she was crazy. Was it true? Xiao Jing, your daughter is dead, and you want to marry a concubine's daughter. You even want to send this bitch's daughter to the prince's mansion and give her the title of the legitimate wife. You are so cruel. What did you say when Ru'u was alive? Just, you want me to give way to a bitch's concubine? If you want to die, I will die here today. The madam struggled hard, trying to get rid of Xiao Jing's control. But she was just a woman, and a woman who had been locked up for so long. She was very thin and didn't have much strength. She just reached out her hands to slap Xiao Jing's body and face, and scratched him mercilessly. Her eyes were red. Yes, everything madam said is right. It's my fault. I didn't take good care of you. Ru'er is gone, but we still have Huan. Even if you don't think about me, you have to think about Huan. Even though there were scratches on his face, Xiao Jing still held her hand in a good temper, trying to calm her down. Compared to Jiang Shi's vicious gaze, his gaze was extremely kind. Moreover, there was a tinge of sadness in his gaze. He looked truly heartbroken. How could he not be sad when his wife became like this? His daughter was gone, and his wife was crazy. Anyone in such a situation would be sad. So, the madam was really crazy? The people who had been talking about Xiao Jing began to sympathize with him. They saw Xiao Jing's tolerance for his wife. A man's tolerance for his crazy wife was very touching. As he spoke, Xiao Jing pulled Madame Jiang towards the door. He exerted his strength and Madame Jiang staggered forward, but the expression on her face could be said to be tender and pitiful. Just a few more steps and he would be able to drag Madame Jiang in. A ruthless look flashed across Xiao Jing's eyes. This time, he would not give Madame Jiang a chance to escape. He tightened his grip on Madame Jiang's wrist. Xiao Jing, let go of me. Let go of me. You want to kill me? Let go. Madame Jiang struggled with all her might, but she couldn't resist Xiao Jing's strength. He was about to be pulled through the door. An old maid suddenly rushed over and hit Xiao Jing hard with her body, shouting, "Madam, I'm here to save you. Might please spare madam." As she spoke, she bumped into Xiao Jing. Xiao Jing didn't expect that an old maid who didn't look strong would really dare to bump into him, so he pulled Mrs. Jiang back a few steps. When he loosened his grip, Mrs. Jiang was pulled over by the old maid. "Xiao Jing, you can't tolerate my life. Do you have to kill me? You don't want to spare my life. Is it because you killed the former heir of Duke Xing and Infanta Qinghua?" As soon as Madame Jiang loosened her grip, she screamed. Her wrist had been pinched in Xiao Jing's hand just now, so no one noticed it. At this time, they immediately saw a fierce red mark on her wrist. How hard would it take to stretch a person like this in such a short time? Hearing Madame Jiang's words, everyone's face changed dramatically. "What nonsense are you talking about, Madame Jiang? Well, stop it. The doctor will come in a moment. Just use some medicine." Xiao Jing's heart suddenly skipped a beat, and he immediately knew that it was not good. He secretly hated himself for being soft-hearted at that time. If he had known that Madame Jiang would do something bad, he would have directly killed her. At most, his reputation would be a little bad. As long as no one in the mansion investigated it, it was not a big deal. He quickly stepped forward to pull Madame Jiang. Madame Jiang took a few steps back and suddenly laughed wildly. Xiao Jing, are you afraid? Do you also know fear at this time? Am I crazy? You really dare to say that? Look at these. She pulled down the collar of her neck fiercely. Everyone turned to look at her and saw the red and swollen marks on her neck. They couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. It was obvious that she really wanted to strangle someone to death. It turned out that she was not blinded by phlegm. She really wanted to kill Madame of Marquis Xing. Thinking of what Madame Jiang had said just now, many people's faces changed dramatically. They looked at Xiao Jing in horror. Did she want to kill her to prevent her wife from doing something bad? She wanted to strangle her to death, but they didn't expect that she had escaped. Xiao Jing, my daughter is dead. You're the one who caused her death. Now you want to marry your mistress and marry her. You think I'm a hindrance, so you want to take my life. Xiao Jing, even if I die and become a malicious spirit, I'll come for you. Madame Jiang stared at Xiao Jing in a frenzy. She was filled with hatred. Her daughter, her charming daughter, was dead. Xiao Jing even wanted another woman to replace her and her daughter. She would not agree even if she died. She didn't believe that the cheap woman was the daughter of the censor. Madame Jiang, don't pester endlessly. You want to commit suicide and make a scene. What do you want to do? Although our daughter is dead, we still have a son and grandchildren in the future. Do you want to destroy the whole family? Xiao Jing also became agitated, looked at Madame Jiang and scolded her angrily. He took a few steps forward, angry and sad. Madame Jiang, stop it, okay? We still have a son. Is gone, but you still have a son. You still have a son. He took a few steps forward and Madame Jiang took a few steps back. The distance between them was still there. Xiao Jing, I won't believe you. I won't believe you anymore. You let that mistress enter the mansion and take my position and my daughter's position. How could a cheap woman be the miss of the censor's mansion? It's ridiculous. A miss of the censor's mansion who has been banished to another place. After so many years, no one in the capital city knows her. Tears fell from Madame Jiang's eyes. She cried and said with hatred. Her daughter was dead, but Xiao Jing not only didn't come to comfort her, but also wanted her to make way for a cheap woman. How could she be reconciled to this? She would not be reconciled even if she died. Xiao Jing was very anxious. Now he just wanted to get her into the mansion and nothing else. There won't be anyone. Don't worry. There won't be anyone else. Stop it. We lost a daughter. How can we make such a scene? Xiao Jing reached out his hand with a sad face. This time, he didn't rush to pull Madame Jiang. His hand stopped in front of Madame Jiang, and his eyes were sad. No matter what happens, we can get through it together. Don't think about those trivial things. The Marchioness of Marquis Xing's mansion will always be yours. Think about it, we still have a son, right? Seeing that his attitude had softened and he didn't force her anymore, Madame Jiang's face became a little clearer. She looked at Xiao Jing's hand. Although he didn't reach out his hand, there was a little hesitation in her eyes. She did have a son. Xiao Jing reminded her again and again, and she also hesitated. Before she came here, she wanted to put up a life and death struggle. Her daughter was gone, and her biggest reliance was also gone. Xiao Jing actually wanted to marry another beautiful wife and concubine. It was better for them to die together. She still had a son, and her son was also excellent. Even if it wasn't for Xiao Jing, she still had to do it for her son. Seeing that Madame Jiang's expression had softened a little, Xiao Jing was overjoyed. His face became softer, but his eyes were still sad. I know what happened to Ru or made you confused. I didn't mean to hide it from you. I was afraid that you would find out and take things too hard. So I deliberately hid it from you. How did you know? Was it Princess Qin? Xiao Jing's voice trembled, with a trace of sadness and pain that could be sensed. Marquis Xing, is what Madame Jiang said true just now? A lazy and cold voice suddenly came from the gate. Chu Luqian walked out slowly. His gorgeous golden embroidery was shining in the sun, but there was no smile on his handsome face. With his hands clasped behind his back, he stood at the gate and looked down at the farce in front of him. Behind him, 4 guards followed closely, each of them holding the hilt of their swords, full of killing intent. Xiao Xuanzi walked down quickly and walked to Xiao Jing and Madame Jiang. Madame Jiang, you just said that Marquis Xing killed Infanta Qinghua and the former heir of Duke Xing. Is it true? Xiao Jing's eyes narrowed tightly. He remembered that when he came out he specially asked Chu Luchen to accompany Xiao Wanru for a while, because he was afraid that this matter would attract Chu Liuchen's attention. How did he come out from inside? Greetings, Your Highness. Xiao Jing took a few steps forward, bowed to Chu Luchen and explained, Madame Jiang just learned about what happened to Ru. She couldn't stand the blow and wanted to commit suicide. After being saved, she became delirious. Your Highness, please forgive her. Chu Luchen walked down slowly with cold and dignified eyes. Xiao Jing's eyes involuntarily wandered, and he lowered his head, not daring to look at the pair of handsome eyes with hostility. He cried bitterly in his heart. At the moment, he just wanted to make big things small and small things nothing. As for his mistress, it was not something he dared to think about at the moment. Madame Jiang was such a fool. How dare she say such words in front of so many people? She would bring disaster to the whole Marquis Xing's mansion. You mean she is crazy? Chu Luchen stood in front of Xiao Jing and hooked the corner of his mouth. He raised the corner of his mouth, but the smile did not reach his eyes. She is a crazy woman and made such a scene. You can divorce her or lock her up forever. I will make the decision for you. Divorce this crazy woman. Madam of Marquis Xing can't be a crazy woman. Divine Emperor of 9 Heavens. Chapter 1201. Your Highness, Madame Jiang is my first wife. Now, how can I bear to divorce her? It's my fault that things have become like this. Please forgive me, Your Highness. Xiao Jing looked at Madame Jiang's reluctant face and said to Chu Luchen in a sad voice with his eyes turning red. Chu Luchen didn't say anything. His eyes fell on Xiao Jing and Madame Jiang. After a long while, he suddenly asked Madame Jiang, Madame Jiang, is what you said before true? Did Marquis Xing really kill heir of Duke Xing and Infanta Qinghua in order to snatch the title? Madame Jiang shivered. At this time, she didn't want to put up a life-and-death struggle. She was so flustered that her face turned pale. She involuntarily retreated behind Xiao Jing. Prince Chen in front of her gave her so much pressure that she couldn't even speak for a moment. Your Highness, I was talking nonsense just now. She still had a son, and her son might inherit Marquis Xing's mansion. She couldn't destroy all of this. Xiao Jing breathed a sigh of relief. He was afraid that Madame Jiang would say such words again. At that time, he would really be unable to explain himself. Fortunately, Madame Jiang was still rational and didn't continue to pester him endlessly. Your Highness, she just couldn't bear it for a while, so she was suddenly confused by phlegm. She will be fine after a few days of rest and a good treatment. But it's my fault that I startled Your Highness and Your Highness. Xiao Jing said with a wry smile and reached out to hold Madame Jiang's hand gently. Madame Jiang didn't struggle this time. She lowered her head to hide her flustered face. She was also afraid now. This kind of thing can't be said easily. Since Madame Jiang thinks so, then go to the Ministry of Justice to file a case. Originally, the matter of the former heir of Duke Xing was very suspicious. Chu Luchen said slowly, with some unknown meaning in his eyes. He slightly raised the corners of his mouth, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. Your Highness, it's just Madame's words that were confused by phlegm. You can't take it seriously. Your Highness, please be magnanimous. Xiao Jing begged with an extremely humble attitude. Marquis of Xing's words are a little late. I have just sent someone to inform the Ministry of Justice. Chu Liuchen's thin lips showed a faint smile. Xiao Xuanzi said to Xiao Jing with a smile, Marquis Xing, our prince has sent someone there just now. They may arrive at this time. Marquis Xing, you'd better get ready, in case you don't know anything when the people of the Ministry of Justice ask you. Xiao Jing staggered and almost fell. His face turned green and pale. Even though he had been in the officialdom for so many years, He had never seen Prince Qin so difficult to deal with. It was just a small matter. How could the Ministry of Justice handle it? How free were the officials of the Ministry of Justice to handle such a small matter? Your Highness, the Ministry of Justice is a just and dignified place. You shouldn't go to the Ministry of Justice over a small matter between me and my wife. Xiao Jing still wanted to struggle. The people from the Ministry of Justice are here. Chu Luchen ignored him and looked at Wen Shiqi from the Ministry of Justice, who was walking in 2 rows towards them. What a coincidence! Xiao Xuanzi, ask someone to prepare a horse. You stay and talk to Lord Wen of the Ministry of Justice about this. I and my wife are going back to the mansion. Xiao Xuanzi instructed a guard to prepare a horse and went forward to greet them. When Madame of Xing said this, many people heard it. Now she couldn't deny it even if she wanted to. Xiao Xuanzi had been waiting outside the door and watched the whole scene. It was indeed the best for him to stay and explain it. It was a mess. In this way, no one cared who passed the news of Xiao Yanru's death to Madame of Xing. The carriage of Marquis Xing's mansion drove out. Xiao Wanru had already sat in the carriage, while Chu Luchen got in the carriage at the gate of the mansion. After both of them got in, the coachman waved his whip and left, leaving a large group of people around Marquis Xing's mansion. In such a mess, no one was willing to leave and continued to watch the development of the situation. The matter in Marquis Xing's mansion was really noisy. At present, Madame of Xing didn't seem to be really crazy. Between her and Xiao Jing, no one could guess who was telling the truth and who was lying. The crowd was divided into 2 sides, and the officials of the Ministry of Justice came over. When Shiqi looked professional, after making an obeisance to Xiao Jing, he asked someone to take Madame of Xing back to record her statement. Third young master Wen, Madame of Xing is really talking nonsense. She was so confused just now that she didn't know what she said. Xiao Jing stood in front of Wen Shiqi helplessly and didn't allow him to take Madame of Xing away. Marquis Xing, this is Prince Chen's idea. He said that someone killed his father-in-law and many people heard your wife's words. Our Ministry of Justice also has to handle it according to the law. Lan Shiqi said slowly. But Madame of Xing has an identity. She doesn't have to go. How could Xiao Jing let Madame of Xing go to the hall of the Ministry of Justice? Marquis Xing, Prince Qin is the victim. Since he said so, the officials of the Ministry of Justice should do it. Unless Marquis Xing can find someone who can speak for him, we can only do it according to Prince Chen's order. When Shiqi remained unmoved and said, 2 officials of the Ministry of Justice came up to take Madame of Xing away. Madame of Xing was scared and reached out to pull Xiao Jing's sleeve. She had long lost the courage to put up a life-and-death struggle. Third young master Wen? Marquis Xing still wanted to say something, but Wen Shiqi had already waved his hand. Someone came over and dragged Madame of Xing back. Madame of Xing was still holding Xiao Jing's hand. After he was dragged a few steps, Madame of Xing's hand fell. Marquis, we are husband and wife. We have been married for many years. We should die together. Marquis, don't forget what you promised me. Madame of Xing cried loudly. She reached out to grab Xiao Jing, but was dragged away. Wen Shiqi, you can't take Madame of Xing away at will. If you take her away today, you will have to step over my body. Seeing that Wen Shiqi didn't care about his feelings, Xiao Jing also got angry. He reached out to the waist of a guard beside him, pulled out a sword, stretched it forward, and said harshly. The sword was pointed straight at Wen Shiqi and held horizontally in front of Wen Shiqi's chest. They were fighting, and they were even fighting with the officials of the Ministry of Justice. Everyone gasped, and they were even more unwilling to leave. What was going on? Why did it become so explosive? Wen Shiqi looked at the horizontal sword in front of him and then at Xiao Jing. He looked extremely calm and said expressionlessly, Marquis Xing, do you want to rebel? His words were so harsh that Xiao Jing couldn't bear it. The sword in his hand shook twice and fell down. Marquis Xing, don't worry. If it's nothing serious, your wife will definitely send it back. But now we have to go to the Ministry of Justice to make a statement. Since Prince Qin has sued Madame of Xing for this, we may have to ask you to go there. Now I'll go back first. When Shichi cupped his hands to him and said. Then he turned around and left with his men. Xiao Jing winked at Madame of Xing. She didn't dare to struggle anymore and could only follow him. The officials of the Ministry of Justice left. When Madame of Xing said this before, they quarreled too fiercely at that time. At first, everyone didn't take it very seriously. Now they thought about it carefully and looked at Xiao Jing with some suspicion. If it was true, Marquis Xing's mansion in front of them was probably in big trouble. Especially Xiao Jing's family, this was not the first time they quarreled openly with each other. When Xiao Jing returned to the mansion, he felt that his feet were floating. Standing in the mansion, he only felt that his vision was dark. He held a tree with his hand to make himself stand steadily. How did things become like this? It was just a small plot to let Madame of Xing die, in Xiao Wanru's hands. How did it get involved in what happened in the past? That matter had been buried deep in his heart. He didn't even mention it to Madame of Xing. If the matter of killing his brother was exposed, he would be finished. At that time, he didn't tell Madame of Xing that he secretly went to the border because he was on guard against her. After being married for so many years, Madame of Xing must have guessed it. But it was just a guess. Xiao Jing had never thought that Madame of Xing would suddenly want to die with him in front of so many people. In order to hide what happened in the past, he even secretly tried to prevent Yan Shi from entering the capital city. He was afraid that if Yan Shi entered the capital city, his father would also send someone to find out that he was also at the border and arouse Ru and great elder princess's suspicion. Madame of Xing, it was all Madame of Xing. He gritted his teeth and pulled himself together. Now he had to think of a way to prevent Madame of Xing from destroying him. Marty, old Madame invites you to see her. A servant girl hurried over. Seeing Xiao Jing standing there with his eyes closed, she hurried forward and said, Tell old Madame that I will be there in a moment. Xiao Jing opened his eyes and said, Yes. The servant girl didn't dare to say anything else and turned back to report. Xiao Jing closed his eyes again and then turned to Xiao Hua and study. When he arrived at the study, he asked the servant to guard the door and strode in. Father! Xiao Hua, and was reading a book. Seeing Xiao Jing come in, he hurried to stand up and salute. Don't be so polite. Sit down. Xiao Jing sat down and waved to the servant serving Xiao Hua, indicating that he could leave. After the servant left, Xiao Jing propped his head in his hand and said, Your mother was making trouble at the gate just now. She wanted to fight me to the death. She also said that I killed your uncle and Infanta Qinghua. What? Xiao Hua and didn't understand and said in surprise, Isn't my mother in the backyard? Why did she make trouble at the front gate? And what did she say? I don't know how your mother sneaked out of Marquis Xing's mansion and went to the front gate to make trouble. Prince Chen was there today. After hearing her say that I killed your eldest uncle, he called the people of the Ministry of Justice over. Xiao Jing lowered his head and looked listless. Your mother is trying to kill us. Father, what should we do? Xiao Huan was shocked. This time he finally heard it clearly. Killed eldest uncle? How could this kind of thing be said casually? Moreover, it was brought to the Ministry of Justice. Go to the Ministry of Justice and ask about your mother. Tell her to stop making trouble. You know what happened to Ru? She thought that she couldn't let a concubine get away with it. But I... Xiao Jing pinched between his eyebrows and felt a headache. I don't know who instigated her to say such things. She didn't care about you. Your mother is really crazy. End of this chapter. Chapter 1202. Love to read? 5200 will provide you with wonderful novels. Update the latest chapter of Crown Princess's medical skills as soon as possible. Father, what should we do now? Xiao Huayan asked anxiously. Your mother is in such a mess. I don't know what to do at the moment. If she continues, the safety of our mansion will be in danger, and your sister. Xiao Jing sighed and felt annoyed. Your mother was staying in the yard. Why did she suddenly come out and say such things to me? Father, did you go to see my mother before? Xiao Huan was surprised. Your fifth sister went to see her and said something to her, Xiao Jing said. Father, my fifth sister must have said something to make my mother so flustered. Xiao Huai'an's eyes flickered slightly. Even if your fifth sister said something and told your mother about your sister's death, she shouldn't have said that I killed your eldest uncle. Xiao Jing frowned. No matter how he looked at it, it was Madame of Jiang who said it, so it couldn't be blamed on Xiao Wanru. It was impossible to say that Madame of Jiang believed Xiao Wanru's words and deliberately framed Xiao Jing because of her good relationship with Xiao Wanru. The room fell silent. After a long while, Xiao Huai'an raised his head and said with struggle in his eyes, Father, should I go to see my mother? It's best for you to go and see her. I quarreled with her before. If I go now and something happens to your mother, it will be easy to blame me. Xiao Jing looked at Xiao Huai'an kindly and said, Everything I have belongs to you. In the future, this title and everything can only belong to you. I am so old, and you are the only son in the courtyard for so many years. I can't have another son in the future. Xiao Huai'an fell silent again. A trace of darkness flashed across his eyes. He clenched his fists and didn't answer Xiao Jing's words. He lowered his head and was speechless for a moment. I know, it's hard for you. But if I don't do this, then we can only let them investigate. You know what the Ministry of Justice is doing. If Prince Chen keeps using this as an excuse, Marquis Xing's mansion can't get away. If something happens to me, the title will not fall to you, and your sister's matter will not be settled. Xiao Jing said in a low voice in pain. Xiao Huai'an shook his head and said with difficulty, Juan, I know what you want to say, but it's all your mother's fault. If she had stayed in the mansion, nothing would have happened, Xiao Jing said as he rubbed between his eyebrows. I didn't want this to happen either. Father, do you really not want to be like this? Didn't you say that you were going to marry An Yang as a co-wife? Out of nowhere, Xiao Huai'an raised his head and stared at Xiaoan angrily. He didn't ask about the affairs of the manor, but that didn't mean he didn't know anything. There was only one secondary wife. Since he had one, and it was a secondary wife who had retired from the position of principal wife, it was impossible for his father to marry another secondary wife. Otherwise, he would marry a principal wife. But no matter what, this Yin Yang's status was not good enough to be a principal wife. Xiao Jing's original legal wife became the second wife, and his former mistress became the legal wife. If he really did such a thing, Xiao Jing's official position would come to an end, and even the title of nobility in Marquis Xing's mansion would be removed. Don't you know that too? Xiao Jing looked at Xiao Huai'an calmly. For your sister, if it comes to this, I have to do this. Xiao Jing's words seemed to reveal an unbearable scene in Xiao Huai'an's heart. He threw all the teacups in his hands onto the ground, and the teacups broke into pieces, making the room extremely quiet and suffocating. Think about it and make a decision quickly. I'm going to see your grandmother now. She must be frightened. Xiao Jing didn't get angry at his son's disobedient behavior. He stood up, patted Xiao Huai'an's hand, and strode away. When he reached the door, he turned around and reminded Xiaoan, You have to be quick. If you're late, it'll be bad. After saying that, he walked out. When he reached the door, he heard a clattering sound in the room, as if something had fallen down. The servants were so scared that they didn't dare to move. How could the usually gentle first child be so angry, especially when Master Marquis just went out? Xiao Jing also heard the sound, but he didn't stop. No one could make him stop, not Madame of Jiang, nor Xiao Huai'an. Old Madame had already stood up and asked someone to watch the door several times. Seeing Xiao Jing coming, Nanny Yu hurriedly went in to report, and then stood outside the door. While the mother and son were talking inside the door, Nanny Yu lowered her head outside the door. It seemed that she was watching the mother and son outside, but her heart was beating fast. She had guessed what old Madame and Marquis Xing were planning, but she didn't dare to remind Princess Chen. In fact, Nanny Yu didn't want to see Princess Chen and old Madame quarrel like this. As early as the first time they met, Nanny Yu felt that Princess Chen was a good person. However, Jiang Furen could not bear the sight of Chen Wangfei and repeatedly plotted against Chen Wangfei. Moreover, because she plotted against Chen Wangfei, third foreign had a handle on her. Eldest young miss, who had originally looked after Chen Wangfei in a harmonious manner, secretly used endless means. Her actions were very vicious and ruthless, even worse than Jiang Foreign. Nanny, you didn't believe that old madam didn't see this. First Miss repeatedly behaved like a little girl in front of old madam, and old madam couldn't really be deceived to the extent that she didn't know anything. However, old madam really believed Madam of Jiang and First Miss, so she repeatedly forced Princess Chen. Nanny Yu was actually an outsider, but also an insider. She carefully hid her inner thoughts and helped old madam to do things. In fact, she always thought that old madam was wrong, and she was extremely wrong. After Princess Chen returned to the mansion, she should treat Princess Chen very well. She was a girl without parents and lost outside. As a grandmother, shouldn't she take good care of her? Moreover, she had saved old madam's life. Old madam not only didn't have any kinship with her, but also didn't remember the old kindness. She was really heartless. This also reminded Nanny Yu to secretly keep an eye on Princess Chen. Now old madam trusted her very much, and she might die in old madam's hands one day. Old madam didn't seem to care about the old friendship. Nanny Yu had been paying attention to Princess Chen. The more she got in touch with her, the more flustered she became and the more afraid she became. Princess Chen was obviously not a weak unmarried lady. If someone dealt with her, she would not cry in vain, but would stretch out her sharp claws and give them a hard scratch. Seeing blood and bones, today's matter had been discussed by old madam and Master Ho, but now there was such a big mistake, and even the whole Marquis Xing's mansion was pushed to the teeth of the storm. Step by step, old madam had, after figuring out what to do next, old madam and Master Ho thought they had a plan, but they had already been in Princess Chen's plan. Thinking that Princess Chen was so powerful at such a young age, if she stubbornly followed old madam, in the end, she would either be pushed out by old madam to take the blame or die. Princess Chen had also clearly threatened her before. Struggling in her heart, she looked up at the slightly closed door. Old madam was her old master. She didn't want to betray her, but was Princess Chen wrong? She was not wrong at all. It was old madam and the whole Marquis Xing's mansion that were wrong. Even if Princess Chen wanted to destroy the whole Marquis Xing's mansion, so what? Thinking of this, her heart trembled and she hurriedly lowered her head again. It was impossible. The Marquis Xing's mansion would belong to the little heir in the future. The little heir was Princess Chen's younger brother. Princess Chen would not be so cruel. Then what should she do? Should she still help old madam? Nanny Yu's eyes were dark, and she stood at the door in a dilemma. No matter intellectually or emotionally, she was actually more inclined to Princess Chen, but she was her old master, wasn't she? She moved forward a little. At the previous distance, she couldn't hear the words inside. After a few steps closer, she faintly heard the voices of old madam and Marquis Xing. Nanny Yu's face turned slightly pale. She had never been so close to them. Every time they didn't want to be disturbed, she would stand outside and guard them, and she was far away from the door. But now, she was the one who had crossed this distance. She looked around and found that no one found that she was too close. Old madam and Master Ho were discussing inside, so no one dared to look at them, let alone take the initiative to approach them. Of course, they couldn't find that Nanny Yu was very close this time, much closer than before. Second brother, will something happen? It was old madam's voice inside, with a little tremble. Hearing the news from outside, old madam almost fainted. If it was really found out, the whole Marquis Xing's mansion would be destroyed. Mother, this matter is now in the hands of Madame Jiang. Xiao Jing's voice was still calm. Madame Jiang is so useless, but she still talks nonsense at the door. It's better for her to die early, so as not to harm us. Old madam scolded with hatred. She really hoped that Madame Jiang would die early. At this time, she hated Madame Jiang so much that she completely forgot that her most trusted daughter-in-law was Madame Jiang. I'm afraid we have to trouble Nanny Yu with this matter, Xiao Jing said in a low voice. What do you mean? Old madam rolled her eyes and asked. She glanced at the door and found that Nanny Yu was standing outside now, but she was not afraid that she would hear it. Nanny Yu had always been well-behaved and would not approach the door. She had specially tested that Nanny Yu could not hear clearly from that position. Ask Nanny Yu and other servants to prove that Princess Chen has visited Madame Jiang, Xiao Jing said. What's the use now? Even if she has visited Madame Jiang, so what? Does she have the ability to make Madame Jiang talk nonsense? Everyone knows that Madame Jiang doesn't get along with her. Old Madame said impatiently. The most important thing at the moment was Madame Jiang's matter, and Xiao Wanru's matter would be dealt with later. Mother, that's not what I mean. I just want someone to prove that Madame became so crazy and talked nonsense because Princess Chen provoked her. She said that Ru'er was dead, which made Madame go crazy. That's why she said such crazy things. Xiao Jing clicked his tongue and patted the corner of the table. End of this chapter. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.